30 games, 7 layers. This is the definitive illegal and disturbing video game iceberg. I made this iceberg myself and it's exclusively made up of the worst of the worst. Let's start at the tip of the iceberg. Sexy Beach is a video game series developed by the Japanese company Illusion, who will come up again later for another title they've made. The Sexy Beach series is primarily known for its adult content, focusing on the interactions between the player and the various female characters. The setting of the game is typically on a beach or resort, where the player can interact with these characters in a variety of different ways, most of which being explicit. The gameplay involves dating simulation and visual novel elements, and you're meant to engage in conversations with the characters, with the objective often revolving around developing a relationship that leads to what I'll call gameplay encounters. Sexy Beach has been controversial mainly due to its explicit content. In Japan, it falls under the category of eroge or erotic games, but has faced criticism and legal challenges in other countries. The depiction of certain activities, especially given the questionably youthful appearance of some of the characters, has made it slightly infamous. Due to its nature, Sexy Beach and its sequels have had a very limited release outside of Japan, often confined to specific adult-oriented platforms, or requiring modification or censoring to comply with local laws and regulations regarding explicit content. Kawaii Killer is a mobile game that garnered attention for its unique blend of cute aesthetics and violent gameplay. Developed by Tabamasu Games, a small independent game studio, Kawaii Killer was released in 2014. The game features a vibrant, colourful art style, typical of kawaii culture, which is cute in Japanese, which is obviously made to appeal to extremely young children. In the game, players assume the role of a cartoonish character named Davy, who is a trapper in a forest full of cute animals. The gameplay is very simple and only involves various tapping and swiping actions to catch and dispatch of the animals in the game in a very gory way. Upon its release, Kawaii Killer obviously faced criticism and controversy for its graphic depiction of violence against the cute cartoon-like animals that are made to appeal to younger audiences. The surge of complaints made against the game from parents of young children had it eventually removed from the App Store and Google Play, with Apple issuing a statement saying the app concept is not appropriate for the App Store in its current state. However, children who've already downloaded the game are still able to play it. Postal is an extremely controversial video game developed by Running with Scissors, first released in 1997. It's best known for its dark themes and extreme violence, and the game has been subject of debate and controversy, particularly in the context of the portrayal of mental illness and societal breakdown. The game follows the story of a character only known as the Postal Dude, who believes he is the sole individual in his town that isn't affected by an airborne agent supposedly released by the US Air Force, that he calls the Hate Plague. This leads him on a violent rampage through various locations, including a ghetto, train station, trailer park, truck stop, and eventually a school full of children. The narrative is presented through Postal Dude's perspective, accompanied by a voice in his head that taunts his victims and makes cryptic comments to him. Postal plays as an isometric shooter, where the player navigates through different levels, engaging in gunfights against various enemies. The game's primary objective is to kill a certain number of enemies in the area to progress. The game stands out for its lack of a conventional narrative structure, and its focus on the protagonist's actions and mental state, rather than just a traditional storyline, which initially depicted the Postal Dude attempting a massacre at an elementary school, only to find his weapons to be ineffective against the children. As they all laugh at him and his mental state deteriorates further, he finds himself restrained in a mental asylum, as satanic and hellish images cover the screen. However, the ending was later changed in Postal Redux, due to what the developers called an increasing prevalence and decreased shock value of school shootings. The revised ending features the burial of an unknown person, believed to be Postal Dude's funeral. Harvester, released in 1996, is an extremely unique point-and-click adventure game. It's best known for its surreal narrative and extremely gory content, and the game stands as a distinctive and extremely provocative video game. The game unfolds in the small American farming town of Harvest in 1953, where the teenager Steve Mason awakens with no memory of his past. The town of Harvest is a peculiar and unsettling place, filled with bizarre and hostile characters who seem like twisted parodies of real people. When Steve goes out asking the people of the town who he was or what he's doing here, he is always met with the same eerie reply.
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve.
You always were a kidder, Steve.
Well, you always were such a kidder, Steve.
However, most of the townsfolk persistently urge him to join the mysterious Order of the Harvest Moon, based in the Lodge, which is a huge building within the town, which becomes Steve's new main objective. Steve's exploration leads him to Stephanie Potsdam, who shares his same amnesiac condition. Together, they seek to uncover the truth behind Harvest and find a way to escape. The Lodge becomes central to his quest, as to gain entry, Steve is given a new task each day by the Lodge. Beginning with petty acts of vandalism, that quickly escalate to theft and arson, with each task having unforeseen and tragic circumstances that usually result in someone's accidental death, murder, or even the suicide of a mother and her child. Meanwhile, driven by their mutual fear and reliance on one another, Steve and Stephanie become lovers. As Steve gains entry to the Lodge that he believes must hold the answer to his strange condition and delves deeper into the building, and is forced to confront twisted moral lessons that invert traditional values, like how the Lodge believes charity is futile, and how you should not respect the elderly as they are physically useless. As Steve reaches the top of the Dreamlight Lodge, the climax reveals an actual twist, being that Harvest is a virtual reality simulation controlled by scientists from the 1990s, aiming to transform average individuals into serial killers by desensitizing them to violence. The game culminates in a moral choice for Steve. He can either murder Stephanie and be brought back into the real world, thereby embracing a life of violence, or if you refuse to harm Stephanie, you'll face death in the real world. This decision leads to drastically different endings. Choosing to kill Stephanie results in the game showing a final cutscene where Steve is released into the real world, but becomes a remorseless killer influenced by his experience in the simulation. Or by choosing to live a life with Stephanie in the fake world, Steve lives a peaceful life within the simulation, but is rendered brain dead in reality. Harvester has obviously stirred controversy with its graphic violence, dark themes, and the exploration of societal and moral decay. Manhunt was developed by Rockstar North and released in 2003. It's an extremely infamous and controversial action stealth video game known for its graphic violence and dark themes. The game's story centers around James Earl Cash, a death row inmate who finds himself unwillingly cast in a deadly game orchestrated by the figure known as the Director. The game begins with journalist Mel Powers reporting on the execution of our character, James Earl Cash. However, Cash's execution is a sham. He's been sedated and awakens to find himself at the mercy of the Director, who communicates to him through an earpiece. The Director promises Cash his freedom in exchange for participating in his games. Cash must eliminate gang members, referred to as hunters, across various locations in Castle City, all whilst being filmed by CCTV to create the Director's dream snuff film. Cash's journey takes him through a series of derelict and dangerous environments, each controlled by different gangs. There's the Hoods, which are Cash's first adversaries, which consist of criminals and corrupt police officers. The Cerberus, which is the Director's personal security unit, who are also responsible for moving Cash between locations. There's the Skins, which is a Nazi skinhead gang. The War Dogs, which is a sadistic paramilitary group that kidnaps Cash's family, which just only serves to inspire his violence. There's also the Innocents, which is an outlaw gang divided into Hispanic occultists known as the Scullies, and the psychopathic Babyfaces, and the Smileys, which are a group of former asylum inmates. Cash's quest for survival quickly turns into a quest of vengeance, when the Director betrays him, ordering the War Dogs to murder his family. The remaining War Dogs attempt to recapture Cash, but he manages to eliminate them and team up with a journalist who reveals the Director's true identity, being Lionel Starkweather, a former film producer turned snuff film ring operator. The final act of the game sees Cash navigating through a police and SWAT-infested city to reach Starkweather's mansion, before finally killing Starkweather himself. The game concludes with the journalist exposing Starkweather's crimes and the police's compliance, while Cash's fate remains unknown. Manhunt faced several bans and restrictions in several countries due to its violence, including being made entirely illegal in Australia. Cry of Fear is a psychological horror game, originally released as a mod for Half-Life. However, in 2013 it became a standalone game due to its popularity. The game follows Simon, a young man, who wakes up in a gloomy alley after being hit by a car. He finds himself in a nightmarish version of a Swedish city, filled with darkness and a sense of foreboding. As Simon attempts to find his way home, he encounters a series of deformed and terrifying monsters, with each encounter being more disturbing than the last. The plot thickens as Simon explores various locations in the city, from decrepit apartment buildings to a subway station. Each location presents its own set of challenges and horrors, with the environment becoming increasingly surreal and menacing, reflecting Simon's mental and emotional turmoil. Simon's journey begins in confusion and fear as he tries to navigate the hostile city. His first major challenge comes when he finds a man who had texted him earlier in the game for help, now dead in a bathtub. The discovery marks the beginning of Simon's descent into the game's nightmarish world. A significant emotional moment for Simon occurs when he meets Sophie, his childhood friend and unrequited love, standing on the edge of a rooftop. After Simon confesses his love for her, Sophie rejects him, with their encounter ending tragically with Sophie's suicide. Throughout the game, Simon faces various choices, such as whether or not to confront or flee from the monster known as Carcass, and whether or not to turn over his gun to a doctor he encounters late in the game. These two decisions influence the story's direction and lead to completely different endings. The game's climax is in Simon's house, where it's revealed that the entire story was a product of Simon's imagination. After his car accident, Simon is now wheelchair-bound and depressed, and was advised by his therapist to write about his feelings. The horrifying journey and monsters represent Simon's inner battles and trauma, with the monster Carcass that seemed to be constantly following Simon, representing his declining mental state, and the doctor who you could turn your gun over to, representing Simon's therapist. Cry of Fear features multiple endings, each dependent on the player's choices throughout the game. If the monster Carcass wasn't killed, and Simon didn't give his gun to the doctor, in this ending Simon succumbs to his darkest thoughts, and feeling utterly hopeless and trapped in his own mind, he kills Sophie and his therapist, which is also followed by Simon taking his own life. His suicide note expresses his deep resentment, and a desire for his body to haunt all those who find him. If Carcass again wasn't killed, and Simon does give the gun to the doctor, this ending sees
나의 감정이 요동치네 묻혀져 있던 희망이 나를 불러 이 밤에 손끝을 피해 안해 허무한 속에 꺾였던 용기들과 믿은 기억들과 홀로 남겨뒀던 상처들이 날 양지로 보냈던 위선들이 벼락으로 다시 떨어진대. 길을 잃어 헤매는 영혼은 끝없는 어둠을 태워가니
낙으로 이어진 선율 속에서 흐려져가는 모습을 하염없이 바라볼 뿐이야. 퍼져가는 환상을 비집고 나를 차가운 상처는 나의 몸을 감싸고 있어. 헤어나올 수 없는 꿈 속에 갇혀있는 우리 상처를 품었지. 살아 모든 걸 찢어낸 천사는 바라다 영원히 붉게 타들어. 나를 비웃던 너 형태마저 잊혀지고 손을 멈춘 채로 눈물을 삼켜내. 영원히 헤어나올 수 없는 꿈 속에 갇혀있는 내 상처를 품었지. 살아 모든 걸 찢어낸 천사는 바라다 영원히 붉게 타들어.
터진 눈 속에서 너의 마지막 손을 잡아도 더는 느낄 수 없는 차가운 손길 나의 곁에서 떠나가. 터진 기억 속에서 희미해지는 모습을 보며 아무리 소리쳐도 울려 퍼지는 운명을 갈라낸 전율의 아리아. 끝없이 퍼지는 거짓된 운명의 아리아. 조용히 사라져버린 나를 비추던 희미한 빛을 내 손을 잡은 채로 날개를 꺾어 나의 곁에서 떠나가. 사라진 너를 그리며 하염없이 소리치려 해도 찢어진 나의 몸은 너를 잃은 채 영원한 슬픔 속으로 빠져. 퍼진 총성을 향해 나지는 잔상의 빛 희미해진 운명을 향해 넘치는 잔상의 빛. 퍼진 총성을 향해 나지는 잔상의 빛 희미해진 운명을 향해 넘치는 잔상의 빛. 널 이쁘게 남긴 채 밖에 남은 낙인을 보며 잊혀져 가는 조각들 손에 낀 채 나아가. 힘껏 운명 속에서 돌아오지 못할 길을 향해 남겨뒀던 상처들이 만들어 양지로 보냈던 위선들이
느껴져가는 모습을 하염없이 바라본 뿐이야 어져가는 환상을 비집고 나면 적은 상처는 나의 몸을 감싸고 있어 헤어나올 수 없는 꿈 속에 갇혀있는 내 상처를 품었지 살아 모든 걸 지정해 천사 내 바라보는 모든 붉게 타들어 나를 비웃던 너 형태마저 잊혀지고 눈을 멈춘 채로 눈물을 삼켜내 영원히 헤어나올 수 없는 꿈 속에 갇혀있는 내 상처를 품은 채 살아 모든 걸 지정해 천사 늘 바라보는 모든 붉게 타들어 흩어진 명 속에서 너의 마지막 손을 잡아도 더는 느낄 수 없는 차가운 손길 나의 곁에서 떠나가 흩어진 기억 속에서 희미해지는 모습을 보며 아무리 소리쳐도 울려 퍼지는 운명을 갈라낸 전율의 아리야 끝없이 퍼지는 거짓된 운명의 아리야 조용히 사라져버린 나를 비추던 희미한 빛을
For real? Not on my watch. Ultima's truly efficient VC turbo engine hustles like an MVP. Game on.
Drive the Nissan Altima.
Hello, my name is... Oh my god, my voice. I'm sorry, I went out last night and I was screaming like the entire time. Hello, my name is Emily, as you may or may not know, and today we are going to be delving back into the world of hot Instagram boys. You know, our beloved hottie patatis with the swimmer's bodies. You know, there is no lack thereof of the swimmer's body. I just want to preface this video by saying these boys are really doing nothing wrong. You know, they're hot and they know it. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, they can be obsessed with themselves. It's not illegal. If you want to see someone who's obsessed with themselves, go to my Instagram, okay? Honestly, I think it takes guts and gusto to thirst trap, because guess what? I wouldn't be able to do it, you know, in a serious way. It takes, I mean, really, they're quite brave. All praise the thirst trappers. Now let's just get into it, shall we? Let's see. Okay, so he seems extremely hot, rich, and dresses well. So is he boyfriend material? My money is on yes. These types of posts are so funny to me because it's like, it'll be the most handsome guy you have ever seen. Like, literally looks like he was sculpted, all right? Like, the Greek gods are jealous of him, okay? And then the caption would be like, would you kiss him? Like, yes, Chelsea. I think there are a lot of girls who would maybe like to kiss an extremely attractive man, okay? I wouldn't even mind it. Oh my god, he did not. Okay, but seriously, honestly, if I were to do this, I would literally chop off all my fingers and break my wrist, so good on you, Tyler. But you know, Colin, there's an easier way to stop the fan, okay? Just turn it off. Like, does this guy stop his car by putting it in neutral, getting out of the car, running in front of it, and then putting his hand in front of it and stopping it with pure force, okay? Just use the brakes. And see, this is just proof that if an attractive person does anything,
literally anything,
they can get likes. I mean, this guy could upload a video of him opening a bag of Cheetos and then it would get posted on like a hot boy, you know, like Instagram account, and the caption would be like, anyone hungry all of a sudden? Like, if a conventionally ugly and overweight person did that, they would just get lectured about diabetes. This is Victor, everyone say hi. Hey, yo, what's good? Button up your shirt, sir. The teacher said, put those titties away. We understand that you're a foreign exchange student, but here in America, we like to keep our nipples inside of our shirt for math class. I mean, we can't even see his lower half. Who knows, his ass could be out too. Nipples galore, cheeks out. I mean, listen, I know we're in human anatomy class, but you don't need to, you know, give us a demonstration. The teacher's like, excuse me, Giorgio, but could you put your body parts away, please? Could you save the massive dump truckery for after school hours? Okay, little Joe from you, little Joe Goldberg, season 1, season 2, and 3. I guess he killed people throughout all the seasons. It's giving very much that. I think this whole genre of POVs where like a hot boy commits some heinous crime or murder and it's supposed to be like hot and attractive is like very interesting. But for real, why are people so attracted to this? Like, imagine your friend being like, so what was the first thing you noticed about your boyfriend? And then you're like, his wanted poster. Would you try a sip of him? What? Are you asking me if I would put him into a meat grinder and then blend him up like a smoothie and then take a sip of him? Because I wouldn't. That doesn't really sound very enjoyable for me. Or him, especially him. Boys with eyeliner, would y'all want this to become a trend?
Yes.
Girls, do y'all find this attractive?
I really want to jump from B's to f***ing triple D's.
Don't we all?
Focus on your f***ing upper chest more. Bow, like do some of these.
So when they ask girls, do y'all find this attractive? Well, I do like women and his boobs are pretty big, so I guess yes. Nice rack, Kyle. But for real, his chest is bigger than mine. And I'm not even self-deprecating. It's literally just factual. You know, I say it's not self-deprecating, but saying it out loud, I feel slightly deprecated. Also, he says he wants triple D's. Now, Josh, isn't that a little excessive? I mean, you do whatever you want. You know, if you want to lift those heavy metal plates until your boobs are so big that you need a beige granny bra to support them, then by all means do it. But having big boobs is a struggle. So I've heard. So count your blessings that you don't have to lug around 2 watermelons on your chest, all right? I mean, I feel blessed that, I have grapes at the most. But keep up the good work. You look great, so... Okay, girls, so we completely forgot about the boys who play basketball. I kind of wanted him to miss. But oh my god, you're so right. Before I saw this post, completely forgot about basketball players. If someone would have asked me, who was LeBron James? I would have been like, I have no idea. What does he play, hockey? Also, the caption below is tag your player friends. So does that mean tag someone who plays basketball or tag someone who's a whore? Would you let him say this to you, even though you have a BF?
I like you. I don't give a F about your boyfriend. Come on, let's link and do what I do. I can beat it up with no hands. So talented.
First of all, if I'm in a committed, loving relationship with someone who I trust, someone I have a foundation with, who I see a future with, of course I'm gonna cheat on them with you, Blake, in the back of your Toyota Camry for about 7 minutes tops. I think that seems like something that would be very good for my well-being and overall quality of life. I'm actually pro-adultery. Okay, if you are in a committed relationship right now, I actually advise you to cheat. Multiple times, even. That's my political stance. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm a red flag. I'm obviously kidding. If anyone cheated on me, I'm not the type to murder. But it would cross my mind. Just for a sec. Imagine he's looking at you. What was that at the end? Why does his face at the end look like he just heard me say something like completely out of pocket, or that it looks like I like farted or something? Like I'm imagining him looking at this girl being like, oh my god, she's so beautiful. I think she might be my soulmate. Oh damn, did she just rip one? Okay, y'all girls should start giving your boyfriends chin hickey to show other girls sign. Okay, duly noted.
So stupid. I'm also like putting makeup on.
I didn't even know that was possible.
I agree. You know, before my significant other goes out, I attach my mouth to their chin and just go into overdrive, like a Dyson vacuum attached to a car battery. My girlfriend's like, babe, I'm gonna go grocery shopping. I'm like, all right, come here, you know the drill. But even if I saw a person out in public with a chin hickey, my first thought would be, oh, they fell and hit their chin. That's why it's bruised, not... oh, you know, their significant other is acting like a mosquito now and all of a sudden sucking on their chin to mark their territory. Is it bad to catch feelings over guys like this? Lip syncers? Yes. What's your type? The mysterious one with glasses or the bad, unpredictable one?
I'm not gonna play it because of copyright, but he's lip syncing to that song. It's like Shorty a little baddie, she my little boo thing, Shorty got the fatty, etc., etc. So just use your imagination.
Well, you're not really giving me many choices here. All right, don't have a lot to work with. There are only 2 genders, okay? The mysterious one with glasses or the bad, unpredictable one. Tag yourself, I'm the bad, unpredictable one. I love to commit heinous crimes on a whim.
Thought I'd say, which I'm pretty sure most guys can agree with me. We don't want the same hi, hello, what are you doing conversation. Be weird, it's way more interesting.
Thank you so much for that advice, Michael. Next time I try to start a conversation with somebody, I will try and be as weird as possible and I will refrain from saying things like, hi, hello, how are you? I instead will do something very weird to get your attention. I will make sure of it. Instead of the run-of-the-mill hi, hello, you know what, Michael? I'm gonna send you a video of me trying to catch moths into my mouth so that I can chew it up and then spit it into a jar and then give it to you as a gift, as a part of my courting process. Or maybe I'll send you the entire script for the movie Shrek, but replace every fourth word with your name. Once upon a Jake, there was a Jake princess. But she Jake an enchantment upon Jake, a fearful Jake, which could only Jake broken by love's Jake kiss. But you are right. That's much more interesting than, saying hi. So you heard it here first, girls. If you want to get a guy's attention, be weird, okay? Like, actually weird. Make them concerned. Here's what some guys think, even though all girls are pretty in some way. Okay, T. Oh my god, you know what? I hate talking to new people. I hate social gatherings. I'd rather just stay home and, watch Netflix and pizza all day. Well, not watch the pizza, eat the pizza. Okay, completely unrelated to this, but I'm completely repulsed by my own face and body. Hungry 24/7, also not related to this, but my stomach is growling like a bear at a salmon buffet right now. I mean, I could really go for a 27-course meal. Watching this video. Oh my god, that's so weird. What a coincidence. I guess I just fit all the criteria for being the prettiest girl. Oh my god, that's so crazy. Ugh, I feel malnourished. Oh my god. POV, your serial killer ex-boyfriend followed you home. Oh my god, here we go. Hey, beautiful. Leave us alone! Please don't hurt us! I just want to talk. How are the kids? Don't you dare bring my kids into this, Michael. I'm sorry, just how are we supposed to react to this? Don't you just love a man who stalks you 24/7 and tries to break into your house with your family and mildly threatens your kids? Bae. Here's another multiple choice quiz. Noah Beck or Noah Centineo? All right, okay, let me think about that real quick. I choose Momo from Twice. Look who I found protesting. And it's Shawn Mendes. I'm sorry, but the thought of someone, being at a protest and supposedly trying to fight for a cause that is very serious and significant to the state of our nation, and then seeing a celebrity and being like, oh my god, Shawn Mendes, I don't know, it's just so, weird. Imagine a person being like, we are gathered here today to discuss the trials and tribulations that we have gone through as a nation, specifically racial injustices, and, oh my god, is that Shawn Mendes? Oh my god, Shawn, I love you, Shawn. I'll be needing stitches. Imagine being so attractive, but thinking in your own mind that you're not.
Do you have a girlfriend?
I do not.
Why?
I'm ugly.
I'm sorry, but this is like Jeff Bezos posting a TikTok being like, why don't you have a girlfriend? And then he's like, oh, I'm so poor, I'm on the poverty line. Listen, everyone is entitled to their insecurities. I'm not saying that this guy, can't possibly be, insecure, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like there's a certain level of attractiveness where it's you have to know that you're not ugly. You don't even have to think you're hot, but you just have to know that you're not ugly or be able to conceptualize that even if you perceive yourself as being unattractive, that other people think you're hot. But honestly, if he is posting this, he knows all the comments are going to be compliments towards him. Are you kidding? You're obviously not ugly. So maybe he is insecure because why else would he be fishing for compliments, But imagine if I posted something like this, hello, my name is Emily, as you may or may not know, and today I am so ugly. Seriously, guys, comment down below if you think I look like a disfigured ogre. No wonder I don't have a girlfriend. I'm just literally repugnant to look at. Every time I look in the mirror, I have to hold a bucket next to me in case I projectile vomit. But, if you think I'm wrong and you disagree with me, you can, leave a comment, whatever, share, hit the bell, whatever. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I haven't done a laid-back commentary video like this in a while, so I was feeling lazy. And that's what I felt like doing. So I hope you all enjoyed, and until next time. I forgot the other hand.
Ugh, no. Try my Old Spice. You can use it on your pits, chest, and even your toes.
Can you imagine moving into an entirely new house in a completely new state? And that's very nice.
Here we are, once again, attempting another art style. And whose art style are we going to butcher? Colleen's. Her name reminds me of Kool-Aid. Am I the only one? I remember back in the good old quarantine times, I wanted to learn how to draw women. Yeah, a forbidden gender in my art vocabulary. I'm sorry. I only draw women. After trying the jelly art style, I've been wanting to try Colleen's yassification art style. Also, let me know down in the comments below which art styles you guys like me to try next. I saw where Colleen yassified her fans' artwork, and because I will never know if I'll be a lucky soul in this Gamba. Wait, no, I don't want to say Gamba. Gamba is a Twitch thing. I'm not gay. If I was gay, would I do this? Okay. Get me out of here. Boom, get me the fuck out of here. I stream on Twitch. It's because I never know if I'll be lucky in this gacha pool. I went ahead and yassified myself.
Hello, my name is Emily, as you may or may not know, and... Oh? No need for that. I have something to tell you. I have many things to tell you, actually, and I wrote them all down in my phone, just like last time when I did a video when I basically just kind of talked out of my ass a little bit. And we're gonna do another one of those videos today. Yep, last night I slept with my makeup on, which I know you're not supposed to do that, but I had seen,
In my last video, we talked about TikTok's fear of aging. And when I was doing research for that, I ended up watching a lot of looks maxing TikToks. Because of
YouTube is host to many radically different kinds of content, from vlogging to challenges, from video essays to streamers' VODs, and even a few heated gamer moments every once in a while that it prefers to abscond. But despite the multiplicity of content it enables, the one category it seems particularly inept at platforming is healthy, functional relationships. Save a very select few here and there, it's almost inevitable that when two people's relationship moves from their private lives into the scope of their online personas, where it becomes the subject of content creation, it's simply a matter of time before it crashes and burns, usually with a heavily publicized fallout all over social media. With this being such a pattern, we must wonder why. Why is it that YouTubers have such a rotten track record when it comes to dating? Today, we'll be covering the case of Arcade Craniacs, or namely, how the relationship of Edward Centennial and Nicole Land not only ended on an extremely sour note in front of hundreds of thousands of fans, but was also revealed to have been doomed from the very start. The year was 2007, just a couple of years after YouTube had been created. At this point in time, making a career off of AdSense wasn't even a dream in the minds of people who posted their videos on the site, which was little more than a way to share home videos with your friends, only ever accidentally going viral, which was what being a web celebrity was called back then. Just to give you an idea of how prehistoric these times were, the troll face was a whole year away from being conceived. Meanwhile, a 15-year-old named Edward Centennial created a YouTube account called Superhero15 2007, where he would sporadically upload videos of himself doing tricks while skating, with no pretense of garnering any sort of online following. This went on for a few years, until in 2013, a video would be uploaded called Guy Cries Over Ex-Girlfriend Original, where a now 21-year-old Edward would be spoofing another video, which was uploaded 2 days prior and was very popular at the time, of a guy lamenting his breakup. In the video, Edward appears to have over-the-top mascara tears streaming down his face, acting as a performative, overly dramatic, scorned lover, intermittently calling his ex-girlfriend who broke up with him a liar and declaring his love for her, at one point even pretending to have a heart attack.
Babe, look, I can see you from right here, babe. Look, that's you and me together, babe. Trust me. I fucking love you, babe.
This is one of the strangest acts of foreshadowing ever published on the internet, and soon you'll come to see why. The years went by as the account drifted into complete inactivity, and it was probably during this period that Edward was working at Burger King as a manager. And was mostly not online whatsoever. That is, until January 1st of 2017, when Edward was walking home at 4 a.m., probably after celebrating New Year's, when a stranger assaulted him with a steel pipe. This assault made Edward unable to work or even eat, as the attack not only severely damaged his upper lip, but also fractured his jaw. His lip ended up needing surgical repair from a plastic surgeon, which his insurance didn't cover, so he opened a GoFundMe to raise financial support for the medical bills, which actually racked up to the tune of $27,000. A relatively big Los Angeles skate park and collective called the Barracks made a Facebook post advertising for Edward's GoFundMe, which then managed to raise just a little over $9,000 from 487 donors. This resulting downtime from the recuperation had Edward trying to look for alternative sources of income. 6 months later, in July 2017, the YouTube account Arcade Craniacs was created, with the express purpose of posting videos related to arcade games, which was already somewhat of a niche content genre on YouTube. For the most part, the person being seen on camera was his girlfriend Nicole, or Nikki, as she was usually referred to. While Edward's voice was often heard from behind the camera, he was seldom visible, most likely due to his then still healing facial scar, which he tried to conceal whenever he was on camera.
So we're at this video, the claw machine full of money. We have 510 comments. I don't know, that's a lot, okay? I tell you that much.
Not much time elapsed between their channel's creation and their first successful video, How to Cheat at Carnival Games, which, now, has amassed a little over 700,000 views.
We won a fidget spinner for losing! We just won a fidget spinner for losing! Alright, so that's the video, guys.
In that video's description, their Patreon account was being advertised, though it has since been deleted. The channel would continue to hone in the content and produce many other wildly successful videos, as well as some occasionally racy thumbnails with scantily clad or otherwise sexually exploitative pictures of Nicole. Because of this, the channel was targeted by the demonetization algorithm a few times, which Edward took to Twitter to complain about. I'll take a very brief break here to address Edward's Twitter account that was created at around the same time that the Arcade Craniacs channel was, and that, for whatever reason, he has a disturbing amount of attention dedicated to his bowel movements. What? What are you talking about? Ha ha ha, this dude tweeted about me, ha ha ha. Plus, I was taking a poop, and still am right now, so I have nothing to do. Don't eat Chipotle. Have you ever pooped a demonic poop before? Well, I have. I am unsure why this is, but I'm not here to judge. In any event, while the growth of the channel was already linearly going up over time and their arcade videos were frequently netting over 1 million views, it skyrocketed once 2020 and the lockdowns came around, which caused the arcades that they would routinely visit in order to shoot content to close down. This led them to make a pivot to 3 a.m. content, which is basically a genre of YouTube videos wherein, if you do certain things at 3 a.m., creepypasta characters come to life and try to kill you, or something like that.
I'm hugging him! I'm hugging him!
Dude, he's looking at
No, dude, he didn't let go of my freaking hand, dude.
In 2020, there were rumors going around that Chuck E. Cheese was going to close down, and they capitalized on this trend quite successfully, much to the joy of Edward, whose lifelong enjoyment of the pizza franchise got his family to nickname him Chucky. At around this time, they started frequently collaborating with Lissy Noel, a fellow arcade channel turned 3 a.m. YouTuber, however unlikely that pipeline may be. Despite the evident try-hardish and view-hungry nature of every facet of this kind of content, Craniacs videos had a twist to them. They had a semblance of self-awareness and a sense of humor. Sure, they were still pandering as hard as possible to the YouTube algorithm that regularly feeds this crap to kids, but there were moments that you could actually call funny.
Oh my god!
What the hell?
You guys! He's listening to the baby! You guys! He literally has a fat ass and I want to smack it!
This, plus their other not-so-subtle titling, thumbnail, and hijinks strategies to milk the content for as many views as possible, such as pretending that the channel was going to end, or doing the soy face and having arrows and red circles in every thumbnail, gave them a kind of meme status that launched their channel into orbit. At its absolute peak, the channel was getting millions of views on average, and the hideous, trashy aesthetic and overly obnoxious delivery that the videos had became a source of entertainment, causing some to hate watch the videos in the same way that someone may watch Nikocado Avocado. But this hate base eventually even evolved into a loyal following who genuinely enjoyed their videos for what they were. They had a real fan base who appreciated what they did and supported them as a couple.
2, 1, go! He's twerking!
Oh my god! What the hell?
At this point, it looks like everything was on the up and up for Edward and Nicole. But, as a wise man once said, if you ride like lightning, you'll crash like thunder. Sometimes, the best way to hide things is in plain sight. On the surface, it seemed as if Nikki and Edward were in a great relationship, collaborating towards their shared goal of growing their particular brand of YouTube content, regardless of how taxing or strange it could be, and being remarkably successful at it. However, behind these scenes, things were a lot darker than expected. On October 3rd, 2021, a video was uploaded on the Arcade Craniacs channel that had Nikki on the thumbnail, though she was nowhere to be seen in the video itself, which raised a few eyebrows. But this was nothing out of the ordinary. However, behind these scenes, unbeknownst to any of the viewers, they had broken up and were far from being on good terms. The channel kept uploading as if nothing had happened, and still getting substantial amounts of views. But on October 12th, Nikki posted to her TikTok, Wabi Sabi. In the video, there was a caption which read, "Trying to have an appetite while you're going through a breakup." This puzzled the many fans of Craniacs that followed her on social media. What could this mean? Was she joking? The same day, Nikki would upload a video to the YouTube channel called Me Ranting in New York, where she would document her and her friend Anu, who was herself another successful TikToker, on their trip to New York, which she mentioned she would not have been able to do while in the relationship she was in. After some montage of the traveling, she begins talking about the breakup in a way that heavily suggested that her relationship with Edward was extremely bad for her.
Another thing is that I literally threw up on myself one day ago. Have not thrown up in many years. The last time I threw up on myself was the night that I met my ex-boyfriend Edward. So isn't that weird? Isn't that kind of quirky? It's pretty quirky. People's online relationships that are couple goals, like people's relationships that are in the social media spotlight, are not always what they seem. So this may seem very abrupt to you guys, but it's not to me. It's not in my life, abrupt. I broke up with Edward several weeks ago for very, 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 very valid reasons.
A couple days later, most likely due to people rapidly commenting on all of his accounts, asking him about it, Edward got on TikTok Live and decided to clear the air. He would go on to cry throughout the entirety of this stream, blaming himself for the breakup, saying how good of a person she was and how he didn't deserve her.
Like, I don't deserve nothing in life. I don't deserve nothing, dude. Nicole's like the most amazing woman in the world, dude. I fucking love her, dude. She's such a fucking genuine soul, such a nice person. She's such a nice person, dude. And I messed everything up in the beginning of our relationship, dude. I'm just a really like a crap human, dude. Don't get me wrong. Like, me and Nicole, we had a lot of times where we love each other so much, and we've done so many like cool things together. But it's just like in the beginning, dude, I was just so messed up from like things that happened in my life, and like, I trust me, guys, Nicole didn't do nothing at all. She's been the most nicest, most caring, fucking loving person ever. It's just all on me. I'm just a crap human, dude. I'm literally just a crap human. I don't deserve nothing in life. I don't deserve anything,
Edward's very public display of regret, as well as his purposeful, though vague, admission of guilt, persuaded many people to flock over to his side. The audience members took notice with the contrast of how poorly he was dealing with it, saying that he was struggling to even record new content for the channel, juxtaposed against how Nicole addressed it in a much more emotionally composed way during a trip to New York, and implying that Edward was at fault. Because of this, despite the details and reasons for the breakup still being completely unknown, the public began resenting Nicole for her role in initiating it, which she took offense used to. Many people commented on any post of hers with another guy saying, "That's not Edward," which led her to post this TikTok about a month after the breakup, complaining about the stragglers left over from the Craniacs fanbase that were still following her just to attack her. The post inflamed the commenters even more, which prompted Nicole to make a series of Instagram stories clarifying that the reason why it was such a sensitive topic and why the comments annoyed her was because she'd allegedly been groomed by Edward since age 17. And due to the abusive nature of the relationship, being reminded of it all the time was very vexing for her. After a long period of awkward silence from both of them, now it seems that things were coming to a head. Soon following her allegations that Edward was a groomer, Edward took to his stories to counter her claims. And this time, his tune would be nothing like the last time he talked about Nicole. I'll mostly let his demeanor speak for itself.
What the fuck I just read on Nicole's story making the worst fake fucking accusation about me. Now, I have not even talked about her in fucking months so we could move on with our fucking lives, but she always has to bring my fucking name up so she could be relevant because she's irrelevant now. I legit have proof on the next story to show you that it's all bullshit. You can't believe everything on the fucking internet.
And you know what? You know what's the most fucked up thing? Is that a lot of you guys have no idea what happens behind the scenes when we broke up. Has she called me saying that she misses me, how much she loves me, how she did the worst decision in her life in breaking up with me? I legit have proof, okay?
So long to the weepy guy taking on all of the blame. In the video, he uses the fact that she hung out with him after the breakup against her, also showing a comment of hers. It reads as follows: "Y'all, I had a boyfriend before I met Edward. We met when I was 18. I don't appreciate a lot of these comments that are straight up making up things about me." To which Edward himself replied, "SMH dude, this is why social media is so toxic." When this series of stories was posted to YouTube, Nicole's friend Anu commented on it saying, "I was a personal witness to the pain and suffering Nikki had to endure post-Edward, and I will stand by her in support for her standing up for herself. She was 17 when they started dating, and she has refuted Edward's lies in her Instagram story. When you are in an abusive relationship, your abuser can often make you do things / lie to protect their image. I have literally experienced the same thing in past relationships. You all need to start believing victims and look at the cold, hard video evidence in front of you, presented by the person victimized in the situation, not a shoddy TikTok comment that he forced her to post." Going over to Nicole's Instagram stories, she not only claimed that she was compelled to write that comment exonerating Edward, but did go on to show that they were already together before she was 18, pointing out that she still had public Instagram posts up from the time when they first met that anyone could go look at. One of these DMs included Edward claiming that he was 16 to her, which was a blatant lie considering he was already 23 years old at the time. But, based on old tweets from Edward, he seemed to think that he looked young for his age, perhaps lending some credibility to the fact that he thought he could get away with the lie. Multiple videos in her Instagram Reels, still up as of writing this video, show Edward as early as April 2016, one even containing an, again, sleeping Nicole. This theme of recording her while she's out without her consent or knowledge just keeps popping up, since in another video, which now seems to have been deleted, a drinking Edward films Nicole, who was still a minor at the time, completely knocked out unconscious, presumably from drinking with him, with hickeys on her chest, while he essentially gloated about having taken Polaroid pictures of her. Nicole goes on to expound upon their difference in age. "I was born on November 20th, 1998. His birthday is January 27th, 1992. Many didn't realize our age gap. I posted clues to this so many times and in my videos, and no one noticed. Like, I'm tired. Edward has tried his best to be my friend, just so I wouldn't say shit about this. Also, how am I a gold digger if I was out working with him too? Like, we were there at the same hours I filmed. Haha, the effort y'all will go through to call me a bitch when he was a full-grown man dating a 17-year-old. He attended my graduation ceremony. As for Edward's claims about her still having feelings for him and regretting having broken up with him and the footage he took while in her new apartment, Nicole had explanations for those as well. "I'm really falling for someone sweet, and I would like if you just didn't talk to me unless it's business / about the money you owe me, because I feel very connected to this person. Although it is so brand new, and I want to date them without you blowing up my phone and stuff. I'm sorry, but like, I told you I'm looking for my soulmate. I'm looking for someone who could could never hurt me, and I'm taking steps to do that. You should move on. You should let go. I don't feel any romantic love for you anymore, and I really haven't for a while. I felt disconnected from you even before I tried to break up with you this last time. My ex is reaching so hard. Every time I ignored him, he would blow up my phone. He kept trying to convince me to be his friend, and that's why I even let him into my apartment the first few nights after I moved in. He even took my damn cat. I had to literally run away to New York just to get away from him long enough to rent an apartment. I should have never believed his manipulation tactics. However, I cut him off completely, 100% before the week of Halloween. He also held the money he owed me over my head, so I had to be nice to him or he literally wouldn't give me the money I worked for. It's the principle of it. I am not a gold digger, but I was literally there with him filming every single night. This makes him sharing his recordings of himself in her apartment even more suspect than it already was, because he clearly tried to contextualize them as if they're made up in some capacity, which evidently was not the case. Unfortunately, despite the receipts having been posted, they were only up on ephemeral Instagram stories, so the majority of people were still unaware of the allegations or what was supposedly going on behind the scenes, which meant this whole affair was far from over. As the time passed after their social media drama had reached its peak and it began to die down, Edward and Nicole's respective YouTube channels reflected the fallout. Craniacs, though still retaining a lot of the popularity it had garnered on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, started nosediving in views on its main channel as soon as the allegations were made, though Edward continued to post the same exact type of content as before without missing a beat. Only now, with a noticeably absent Nicole. Meanwhile, Nikki, who used to upload these same genre of videos as Craniacs to her personal channel, stopped doing so completely and took a sharp turn to lifestyle and vlogging with her new boyfriend. But before turning over this new leaf completely, she did one pit stop to put the conflict with Edward behind her once and for all. On November 27th, almost 2 full months after the breakup became public, Nicole posted a video titled, "I Was Groomed, Hidden in Plain Sight," which now has over 1 million views. In it, Nicole gives full disclosure about not just the Craniacs affair, but everything related to it, now in an organized and easily consumable format, with its proceeds being donated to RAIN.org, which is America's largest anti-sexual violence organization. Now, I need to make it clear that everything Nicole says is alleged. I wasn't there, and neither were you, as the only people who truly know what happened are Nicole and Edward. That being said, I will recap the experience that she details in her video. Before even getting to the topic of her abusive relationship with Edward, she mentions that before they even knew each other, she'd already been targeted by other groomers because of her visible vulnerability, being a troubled teenager who attended a continuation school, which, if you don't know, is essentially a school for students who are considered at risk of not graduating. The first grooming incident she experienced was when she was just 13 years old, being targeted by a guy who was at least 21 years of age. Then, when she was 14, a guy who was almost 20 did the same. Nicole explains that, by the time she met Edward, when she was 17, she was already depressed and struggled to keep friendships, meaning she was socially vulnerable.
And growing up, I honestly, unfortunately, seemed to be the perfect prey for these types of people.
She also reveals that Edward would have her lie and to go behind her mother's back to see him, saying instead that she was going over to her friends' houses, when in actuality, she was going over to his, where he made a habit of giving her alcohol. Remember all of those instances of her being filmed while asleep? Often, it was the case that Edward had her purposely drink herself until she was unconscious, giving her hard liquor, which she wasn't used to drinking.
So during the course of the next few days, after we started talking in April, I basically started lying to my mom and tell her that I was going to like this friend's house or this friend's house for a sleepover every single night. And in reality, I was going out with him and we were drinking together all night. On our first date together, he took me to a park after we went to the liquor store and he bought a bottle of Peach New Amsterdam and Cactus Cooler.
Mind you, this is their first date, and according to her account, he not only got her blackout drunk, but when she woke up, she found she had puked all over herself and that he had taken off her shirt, proceeding to basically gloat about how he could have taken advantage of the situation but didn't, as if it was some kind of merit and not basic common decency, especially considering he was the one who made her blackout drunk in the first place. I don't mean to satirize this obviously horrible story, but his immediate next move was nothing other than asking Nicole for an IMDb review of Lil Edward.
So was he deterred by me vomiting all over myself and him almost getting in trouble for buying alcohol for a minor? No, of course not. In fact, he began texting me, asking me if I thought that his dick was big or not, because apparently before I had completely blacked out, I had been touching his dick.
Yet another highlight of Edward and Nicole's early dating was that, while Nicole was passed out drunk over at his house, he would leave her alone sleeping on his bed while he'd go out and meet up with his other girlfriend, who was an adult and would continue to see him despite having full knowledge that he was seeing a minor on the side. At one point, even trying to fight Nicole for him.
And not only knew that I was 17, was weirdly jealous of me and even tried to fight me one time at the Lakewood Mall. This girl had the audacity to message me today and act like she didn't do all that. Like, this was a grown woman that not only knew that her ex was dating a minor, but was also happily willing to have sex with him.
To add to the list of people who were aware of what was happening but allowed it to go on was Edward's family. When she was still a minor and her mom moved to Texas, leaving her behind, she went to live in Edward's house, together with his entire family, who didn't mind that he was seeing a minor per se, but that it might affect them negatively for legal reasons.
You knew I was 17. In fact, she knew I was 17 to the point at which, when I initially moved in, she was pissed. Why would she be pissed? Because she knew I was an underage minor. Not just for moral reasons, but for legal reasons. This was all bad.
It was during this time that Edward would provide for her, as he would call it, which actually meant giving her toothpaste and a steady supply of Taco Bell, perhaps explaining his incessant tweets about his bowel movements, along with a hefty daily intake of alcohol, which effectively made her an alcoholic. For these oh-so-charitable gifts, he would tell her she should be grateful and not complain about his actions towards her. Eventually, she did get a job and moved out of his house and in with her sister. But by the time this happened, it was far too late, as she was already wrapped completely around his finger. She couldn't even go to sleep before he did without being accused of cheating, which was particularly stressful since Edward usually went to sleep at 4 a.m. and Nicole had to wake up early to attend her job. Along with this, she couldn't be anywhere other men might be, which made it extremely difficult to have friends outside of the relationship. It got to the point where, even though she hadn't cheated on him, she began doubting herself, wondering if she actually did during some kind of Walter White fugue state.
It was because of situations like this that I literally started doubting my own reality. I started questioning myself. I was like, did I cheat on him? Even knowing that I had not cheated on him, I questioned myself, did I? Like, what have I done wrong? Like, it seriously felt like reality based on how much anger and force he was putting behind his words.
The red flags were simply piling up on top of each other. What's interesting to remember is that, despite his extreme paranoia about her cheating on him, he would have no problem, during the Craniacs era, plastering the video's thumbnails with sexually exploitative pictures of her. But hey, I guess it's okay if the only people your girlfriend is being sexualized by are strangers on the internet. At age 19, Edward's worst fears came true as Nicole began developing feelings for another guy. And when she told him this, he began doing what psychologists call love bombing, which is when a narcissist overwhelms someone with compliments and displays of affection in order to guilt trip them and prevents them from doing what the narcissist does not want them to do. If the victim goes on to try and exact some sort of justice from their situation, they're the ones who look cruel or insensitive, and not the narcissist. In any event, I will stave off a number of details here, but they go on to have sex, and Edward does a kind of what is called stealthing, reproductive coercion, or gray rape, meaning he attempted to impregnate her without her consent. This is not only obviously a terrible thing to do to someone, but something that will seemingly become very illegal soon. But according to him, he did this because he loved her.
There was no mistakes being made. He, every single time, pulled out without mistake in order to not get me pregnant, of course. It was just the procedure. There was never any close calls, no mistake whatsoever. This time, he came inside me intentionally. And I think he did this because I was breaking up with him. And he knew that he needed to do something to get me to stay.
Though it was very clear this had greatly disturbed and upset Nikki, Edward would not let up on the love bombing, taking her on a spontaneous trip to Las Vegas to see what would happen, which, according to Nicole, resulted in a series of very loud and public fights. Technically, this was the first time they'd broken up, but due to Edward's antics, Nicole began blaming herself and ended up not following through. Having lost the will to end the relationship, they'd return from Las Vegas to continue producing content for the Arcade Craniacs channel, though Edward would continue to ignore any of her video ideas, and even after the channel started making enough money that she no longer had to work, Edward ensured that she'd keep working at Target to help teach her a lesson about real work. Again, this is the guy that runs away from people wearing Among Us costumes.
Kiss this ass, alright? Kiss this booty. Yeah, you like that, huh? That's what happens when KJ and Edward find you. You have to kiss this ass.
Once the switch to 3 a.m. content happened and there was a ramp up in money, the AdSense was directly linked to his bank account. And whenever Nicole would bring up the topic of her receiving a paycheck of some sort, he would become irate, claiming that she was being materialistic, which she later echoed after they broke up for good. Her insistence paid off though, as she did start getting paid eventually. 1 week before their new Chuck E. Cheese content went extremely viral all over social media, but particularly TikTok, Nicole tried once again to break up with him, and again, she failed. This is ironic considering that people who commented on their social media posts all collectively guffawed at how much they were couple goals. In order to promote and maintain this public image of a healthy relationship, Edward had Nicole go through all of her Instagram posts and get rid of anything from before she was 18 that showed them together. That is, with one exception, intentionally on Nicole's part, much to Edward's chagrin. When someone noticed this proof of her being a minor when Edward began dating her and posted a TikTok about it, he got very angry and had her post that comment disproving it. Regardless of this effort to keep up appearances, the dam was beginning to show cracks. Fortunately for archival purposes, those posts that Edward didn't want people to see had been saved, meaning that Nicole successfully restored them once she chose to speak out on it.
And when he found out about this, he was pissed and he forced me to leave a comment saying that, no, this isn't true, this is a lie. Which basically is honestly dumb that anybody even uses that comment as proof, because literally the whole TikTok is proof, irrefutably so, that we at the very least knew each other or were flirting or something when I was a minor.
In an unknowingly serendipitous act, Edward introduced Nicole to Anu, the friend she would eventually move out to New York with in order to get away with him. Interestingly enough, he only did this because he didn't want to have to put in the effort of giving her relationship advice and found her annoying. So he referred her to Nicole, who ended up getting relationship advice from her. After making her plans with Anu to go on their trip to New York, Nicole tried quitting the channel, to the mysterious reply from Edward that the channel was unquittable. However, he did allow her to take a break, as long as it was temporary. During this uneasy period, Nicole would go on to try to break up with Edward 4 times, all to no avail, because he would not only beg and plead for her not to do it, but make it as difficult as possible for it to happen by watching her every move. However, reconciliation at this point was completely impossible, since, according to Nicole, a situation of domestic violence had taken place.
I told him, hey, I don't want to be with you because you groomed me, you sexually assaulted me, you took advantage of me, you used me, and also I don't want to be with anybody who tried to choke me out.
As Nicole recounts it, in one of their heated arguments, he would punch her in the arm several times, to the point where it was black and blue, the way it would remain for several weeks, and proceed to choke her against the wall. To add insult to injury, he would get frustrated in the following recording sessions when, during the taking of the thumbnail image, she'd be unable to show her cleavage because, without her sleeved jacket on, the bruises would be visible.
He punched me a bunch of times in the arm so hard that it literally turned black and blue. Like, for several weeks, my arm was black and blue, and he grabbed me by my throat and shoved my head against the wall of our apartment and threatened to hit me again.
His justification for having hit her was that, during another fight of theirs, when he was speeding and driving under the influence simultaneously, suggesting that he drive off a cliff, while intermittently hitting himself in the head and hitting the pizza box she had on her lap while yelling, "Hit me," she hit him in the leg. Obviously, getting physically violent in a relationship is always a bad thing no matter who's doing it, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the fact that he's 30 pounds heavier than her and that he actually tried to choke her makes his aggression at least a little more extreme. But what do I know? Another of Edward's go-to strategies to prevent the oncoming breakup was to threaten to commit suicide, though he would give up pretty easily when called on his bluff.
He also threatened to kill himself multiple times during these times when I was breaking up with him. One time in particular, he threatened to kill himself and walked over to the kitchen to get a kitchen knife and held it to his wrist. And I said, "You're not gonna do that. You're scared of death." And I was right, he didn't do it.
The day before Nicole's trip to New York, she would tell him that she'd already partially signed papers to move into a new apartment, which prompted him to wait for her to sleep and start rapidly going through her phone. He would find Nicole's DM conversations with Anu and proceed to blame her for everything that led to the breakup. That is, while he would be screaming, throwing stuff around, threatening to kill himself, and at one point, even pretending to have a heart attack to try and keep Nicole from leaving him. Remind you of anything?
You know what I mean? Okay. I'll get a heart attack. I'll get it. Oh, no. I'm not getting a heart attack, just my hat.
Eventually, when this tactic failed, he would just move on from it and pretend that nothing happened. His Hail Mary attempt was to physically block her exit, holding her by her wrist to stop her from leaving, which, too, failed, as Nicole's sister was waiting outside to drive her to the airport. He would continue to guilt trip her and blow up her phone with private messages, and though she would oblige him until he finally sent her the check for the work on the Craniacs channel, when Nicole started dating her new boyfriend, Matt, communications between them ceased entirely. Though he would try to reach even her friends and family members to try and get her to talk to him, eventually the situation settled. Edward posted to his Instagram saying, "I take these accusations very seriously. I will be contacting the proper channels and will return with a response very soon. I ask that the fans please be patient at this time as I sort this matter legally. Please give me time and I will respond properly and with legal representation. Thank you." A video was posted to the Arcade Craniac second channel called My Response, though it is now private and only visible through people's reposts and reactions to it. In it, he reiterates that he will be pursuing these matters legally, suggesting some kind of defamation lawsuit, while reassuring his viewers that he will continue posting videos regularly.
At the end of the day, this is not a game, okay? We just can't go off of he said, she said type stuff. As of now, I am no longer going to be talking about this on the internet because this is something that needs to be sorted out privately. I do plan to address the allegations against me after speaking to my lawyer.
However, it's extremely unlikely that this will ever make it out of the internet, as even if he were to try and disprove any single one of Nikki's claims, the fact of the matter is he started dating her when she was a minor. So if any of this ever actually went to court, he would be setting himself up to instantly become the defendant. If we are to believe that, at least that video where Edward was crying for her was remotely genuine, then he did get his wish, as the Craniacs channel has seriously dwindled in views, while all of Nikki's videos gained popularity pretty linearly. After her having left the channel, she was replaced with two of Edward's friends, one of which is usually seen wearing a cheap Halloween demon mask. Though still getting good amounts of views on its shorts here and there, and still collaborating with Lissy, the channel screeched to a halt as the main videos are struggling to even get 100,000 views, a mere shadow of the Craniac's past audience reach. The current viewership most likely consisting of kids that were too young to understand what happened between Edward and Nicole. With this in mind, the future of Arcade Craniacs is very uncertain, if it'll have any future at all.
Just so many freaking memories, man. It was so cool, man. So cool, and just really sad, man, that, you know, Chuck E. Cheese itself, the whole corporation, man.
I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
I've heard it 1,000 times before, and it's just not that
If you've spent a lot of time on this platform, you've probably heard of Max Stryker, better known as Mama Max. From his collabs with massive creators to his far-reaching social media campaigns, he's a well-established name in the YouTube ecosystem. For the better part of a decade, he's poised himself as a predator hunter, with his channel amassing over 700,000 subscribers. Until recently, Max was seen as a bright light by fans and peers alike, exposing some of the most depraved individuals on the web. This facade and his unearned credibility went largely unquestioned until late late 2023. The sheer incompetence on display led to a complete upheaval of his entire persona, with his entire career put under scrutiny. The result was an unsettling discovery that this wasn't a one-time occurrence, but a long pattern of behavior, revealing Max to be manipulative, dishonest, exploitative, self-serving, and worst of all, outright malicious. This is the story of Mama Max Striker, the internet's worst predator hunter.
Something that thinks it's profound, but it's actually very dull. Sorry to my audience who don't even know what the heck is going on. We'll see you, probably never again.
While Max is known nowadays as a creep hunter, he originally began in a completely different niche. Max was initially aligned with the commentary community, uploading to a channel he created in 2010 named Sexy Pants. He was inspired by the success of people like Leafy is Here and H3H3 Productions, who made it look easy.
The people that inspired me to make my channel, I kind of hate having to bring this up because it's people that I currently don't like anymore. Like people like Leafy were like the ones that made me get on my channel because I saw how fast he was growing from doing something so simple, like he's just talking, and I was like, oh right, that's pretty cool, I want to do that. And you know, like others like Pyrocynical and Grade A Under A, H3H3, even Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, like kind of inspired me.
In late 2015, Max began a series called YouTube Hell, which brought his earliest success on the platform. These were comedic, often nonsensical edits about other drama channels. While no re-uploads exist, a mere look at his banner at the time gives a taste of his sense of humor. I mean really, it's his face next to Filthy Frank, Leafy, and good old Adolf. They were basically YouTube poops about specific creators, with a bunch of ties placed in for good measure. His most successful had names like Pyrocynical in the title, which got him noticed by others in the sphere. By early 2016, Max had nearly 7,000 subscribers and seemed like a promising up-and-comer. He started doing personality-driven content, garnering a small but loyal following. It was his viewers that came up with the nickname Mama Max as a reference to Filthy Frank. They were dedicated enough to advertise his channel for free, spamming his name across comment sections. This is unfortunately when Max hit his first roadblock on the platform. His use of hentai clips was quite risky due to YouTube's terms of service, and it wasn't long before videos started to get taken down. After receiving multiple notices, Max discontinued the series and ultimately decided to switch channels.
I'm Max.
The Mama Max channel was created on May 23, 2016. It would be home to a new series called Life Sucks, in which Max narrated over animations drawn by his sister. Max's content was evolving, motivated by a desire to learn the art of filmmaking. This was a means to that end at a time when he was unable to afford a camera. They were an outlet for Max to vent his frustrations at the world in all of their misanthropic glory. Max would rant about subjects like money,
I figured I'd end the 2019 series of Let's Talk About with a story that is by far one of my favorites. I know I'm entering into uncharted territory for the channel, seeing as this is the first visual novel I'll be covering for LTA, but since some VNs have gameplay mechanics, they can, albeit on a bit of a technicality, be considered games. Granted, this wasn't the reason I chose to cover this VN, as the actuality is this is my favorite one, well, I want to showcase it for others. It just so happens that if I do decide to cover other VNs, it won't be as awkward due to me already having a video on one. Before I get on with the video proper, I will talk about the disclaimer card you just saw. YouTube's method of dealing with what is considered adult content is inadequate, to say the least. You either don't list the video as adult only and run the risk of both video and channel being taken down because YouTube prefers to side with people who abuse their flagging system, or you do list it as adult only and watch your video get no traction at all as it won't pop up in searches. YouTube itself is an adult platform much akin to other social sites like Twitter, yet just like the Hell site, it doesn't treat it as such, and content creators like Hart Weigen, there goes the illusion that this script wasn't rewritten post-2019, who operate fully under YouTube's guideline and do nothing wrong, get punished. My disclaimer cards are an attempt of a third choice. While I will say here that all my videos are intended for people that are 18 and older, as I personally find it weird when a YouTuber's community is made up of mostly kids, and kids should be supervised when on the internet. I never had to express that because the only really questionable content in my other videos was violence. For Saya no Uda and other media properties that have subject matter that isn't for everyone, however, I don't want people to bumble into something that they might not want to or shouldn't see. I think the first thing that I should bring up is this man. For those who are in the know, this is Gen Urobuchi, brainchild of Saya Nauda, some of the early Nitro Plus VNs like Phantom of Inferno and Kikukugai the Cyber Slayer, and the lead writer of Fate Zero, as both Gen and Nasu are friends. Don't let his unassuming appearance fool you, as while this might be one of the few photos where Gen isn't wearing his trademark sunglasses, this man is known in fan circles as Urabutcher, a reference to the fates of the characters in his stories. To say that Urobuchi struggled with cynicism and nihilism for a part of his career would be an understatement. As the man explains in the postface of the first volume of Fate Zero, I am full of hatred towards men's so-called happiness and had to push the characters I poured my heart out to create into the abyss of tragedy. While I will return back to this postface, as that sentence is only one part of the human being called Gen Urobuchi, there is an explanation for as to why Gen himself believed he was infected with what he called the tragedy syndrome. In an interview with Shinji Dai No Mixture magazine Black Past, Gen explains that when he was 24, he contracted a disease from an ongoing epidemic at the time. The severity of the disease was great, as it could have killed Gen if he didn't receive treatment. That's not what stuck with Urobuchi, however. Instead, it was the recovery period. In his own words, Urobuchi describes himself as being erased from society. Though he didn't have any lasting scars, he felt like he was a corpse, and that by spending several months living like a dead man, he felt that he had tamed something like the eyesight of the dead. That's why Gen has no hesitation when it comes to killing characters or writing tragedies. Side note, I will post the Black Past interview in the description, as while the main focus of it is Madoka Magica, Gen does elaborate on some of his past works as well as himself and his views. Also, don't take this as me railing against stories that are dark in tone. People can write any kind of story that they want. I'll acknowledge that dark stories aren't for everyone, particularly because they delve into taboo subject matter and not everyone can handle that. However, that doesn't mean writers should be disallowed from writing about subject matter that is controversial just because a few people don't like it. One of the most powerful aspects of fiction is that it's able to tackle tough subject matter and handle it in a way that is both creative as well as informative, all the while letting people be in their comfort zone, as fiction is fiction. It isn't real. The key detail I wanted to bring up is that Gen did feel like he was being beaten down by his own work and had a bit of an unhealthy relationship with his own style of writing. I don't have to tell you that the Fate Zero quote I started with isn't something a person with a healthy mindset says. Back to the postface and the part that brings everything around, when Urobuchi became so frustrated to the point that he never wanted to write another script ever again, the writer sought out to speak with close friend Nasu about his blight. Visiting Nasu's house, Gen didn't get to speak to him, as instead Fate illustrator Takeshi Takuchi proposed what was going to happen during Fate Zero to both Nasu and Gen. The thing is, Nasu had the same idea, make the story of Fate Zero a tragedy. Any residual dismay had been alleviated, and as Gen says in the postface, I found myself once again immersed in the joy of weaving together a story. It can be said that the launch of Fate Zero saved my writing career. Fate's ending was already set in stone, as Shiro Emiya would still overcome the trials of the Fifth Holy Grail War, thus leading to a happy ending, allowing Gen to write the tragedy he had envisioned in his heart. Per his own words, no matter how I display the darkness inside my heart, from an overall look, I am nevertheless a partner of the warrior of love, Nasu Kanoko. Though he still deals with his lingering ghosts, many of his newer works are notably less cynical, as he has once again found the part of himself that knows the joy of creation. I wanted to go on this dive into Gen Urobuchi, as while Saya Nauda was written during what I will call the height of Urobuchi's state of cynicism. Like the man himself, the story has a tinge of hope that I will no doubt cover in the story tab. As mentioned earlier, Gen joined Nitro Plus as one of the founding writers during the company's inception circa 2000. Saya was released as the sixth visual novel for the company, being slotted in between Zanma Taisei, Demon Bane, and Phantom Integration. Though the original release of Saya was December 26, 2003, it was not translated until 2009 with the original fan translation. Despite Saya not having much of a presence over here in America, IDW somehow got the rights and produced a 3-part comic series dubbed Song of Saya, what Saya Nauda translates to in English, which ran between February and April of 2010. This will be the only time I mention this run, as not only does it take many liberties with the original story, it's a bit shit, like with any American adaptation. An improved fan translation for the VN would then come out in 2013. It would take until August 13th, 2019 for Saya to see an American release via the Steam storefront in Just USA. Something to bring up is that the Steam version of Saya is censored, and that there is a patch from Just USA that costs around $4 that reinstates all of the censored scenes. The uncensored version is also sold on Just USA. I'm mentioning this because the version I used was the improved fan-translated version, as by the time I was finished recording and writing the ill-fated original version of the script, the Steam and Just version came out. I do have footage of the Steam version to showcase the difference between the two, but just keep in mind that most of the footage is using the 2013 version. To begin, this section will start off with two prefaces. One, the story of Saya is told in different perspectives that range from characters within the story to an unnamed third person who's kinda like the narrator of this story. I'll do my best to say which perspective a section is in, but the perspective does switch often, so if I don't, use context clues to figure out. Second, and most importantly, the story starts off with a warning, and while I've already given one in the form of the disclaimer at the start of the video, I'm going to give another one. Saya no Uta is not for everyone, as it has instances of murder, cannibalism, and rape. I'm not forcing you to watch this, and if you want a recommendation of something to watch that isn't that heavy, go watch my TMNT 2003 or Pokemon Snap videos. With that out of the way, our story opens up with a horrendous sight, a fetid mass of fat burbling a language untouched by human lips. If one listens closely, it sounds like the mound is attempting to speak in Japanese, though it's as if the monster's voice is being filtered by a radio that was submerged in some forgotten swamp and left to decay. Making matters worse is that there isn't just one horrid abomination, as the character we are in the perspective in notes that there are two others sitting next to him, and all three creatures are sharing a conversation amongst themselves while they consume a foul liquid. Apparently these creatures are friends of the person, a man, though he does go on to say that he has to carefully listen to what the blobs are saying so he can avoid arousing the suspicion of his friends. He has been doing this for 3 months. Surrounding the man is Koji, the beast with the slightly deeper inflection in its voice, Omi, the one who squeals with a high pitch, and Yo, the mass sitting next to our man and is gagging him with its revolting stench. Reflecting more on his relationship with the three, the man points out that it's as if his life was rebuilt using gore as the construction material, but only the sights and smells have changed. The city he lives in and the friends he knows still exist, albeit as twisted versions of themselves, leaving the man isolated and alone. Wanting to just quietly resign himself and listen to the gargled conversation, the monster known as Koji asks the man, Fuminori, about his thoughts regarding the group's ski trip. Not wanting to look at the disgusting face? I don't know, man. It's like trying to make sense of a Jackson Pollock painting. Fuminori delivers a neutral answer while essentially cowering from the beast. Koji asks another question, this time regarding Fuminori's supposed injuries that we will learn about later, prompting Fuminori to bring up his doctor's appointment and use it as an out so he doesn't have to continue being next to his friend's disgusting forms. It's better than Fuminori walloping Koji with a chair, a thought that Fuminori has while going to leave the cafeteria that he and the others are in, as not only would that break the illusion that Fuminori is okay, in his own words, he'd be sent back to the hospital and be locked away forever. As if trying to assure himself, Fuminori mentally tells himself that he isn't crazy as he heads to his appointment. The same cafeteria scene then plays, this time in the perspective of our unnamed third-person view, allowing us to see that whatever Fuminori is suffering from, it affects his core senses as Koji, Omi, and Yo, plus the cafeteria, all look normal. Just like before, the three friends are talking about their skiing trip, though as it turns out, Omi actually wants to go skating. Koji backs up Omi's idea as he is her boyfriend, causing Yo a bit of jealousy as the man she has eyes for only sees her as a slimy lump with his. The conversation then reaches the same point where Koji asks his question, though he did so out of consideration for Yo, seeing as Fuminori and her are in some sort of relationship than just being friends.
Yeah, だからさ、今年の冬のスキーだよ。お前も行くよな。
Like before, Fuminori rushes out of the cafeteria, but the narrator does point out how slightly distressed Koji is with how Fuminori is acting now, as well as alluding to what happened 3 months ago. Looking at the yen bill and Fuminori's untouched coffee, Omi is the first to speak out of the remaining three, voicing her annoyance over the new Fuminori. Koji tries to defend his best friend, but Omi won't have it as she feels like she's going crazy around Fuminori and his behavior.
だってもう3ヶ月よ。なんなのよあれ。付き合ってるこっちが変になりそうよ。
What happened 3 months ago is then revealed. A tractor-trailer flipped over onto the Sakisaka family car, killing Fuminori's parents and leaving the man in critical condition. Though, as if it was a cruel twist of fate, Fuminori survived but was changed, as when his friends visited him at the hospital, he freaked out like he didn't recognize them. Omi, once again speaking her mind, mentions that Fuminori looks at the group like they were beasts, an observation that is on point, but before Omi can continue her tirade, Koji tells her to knock it off as all this talk about Fuminori is affecting Yo.
よせ、Omi.
The narrator points out that Yo is thankful for Koji's thoughtfulness, but her relationship with Fuminori is her problem and one that she needs to solve by herself. She has asked Fuminori about taking their relationship to the next step, and while he hasn't rejected her, she asked that question before the accident, thus leaving her no answer. As Yo continues to stew of her unrequited feelings in the cold winter air, we jump from the cafeteria to Dr. Ryoko Tombo's office. Unlike Fuminori's friends, Tombo knows something is up as she can tell her patient has closed himself off from the world, but Fuminori blatantly lies to Tombo while not directly looking at her.
いえ、何も。
Putting aside his charts as Fuminori is being difficult, Tombo explains that the treatment he received that saved him was experimental and many others who have had it now suffer from various serious neurological issues. The reason for the checkups is to make sure Fuminori isn't suffering from one, but as the man himself fears what might happen if Tombo finds out, his lips are sealed on the matter. Displaying his knowledge of medical practice and wanting to solidify that nothing is wrong with him, Fuminori asks about his MRI scan, to which Tombo says nothing abnormal showed up on it. However, the narrator does specifically say that if the problem was inorganic, there's nothing Tombo can do unless Fuminori opens up. Tombo asks Fuminori to trust her as she is there to help him, to which Fuminori says that he does. He then asks his own question if that he can come to her for anything, to which she says he can, though this only annoys Tombo as Fuminori has already asked this question last week. Continuing from last week, Fuminori asks about a man called Dr. Ogai, causing Tombo to freeze up. She believes that Fuminori shouldn't be in the know about him and tries to brush her patient aside, but Fuminori uses the two's mutual trust as leverage to get an answer. Not above line, Tombo tells Fuminori that she didn't have any contact with Ogai and that he left the hospital for personal reasons.
何分、だいぶ前にここを辞められた方ですからね。私個人としても交流があったわけではないし。
辞めた理由はご存知ない。
ええ。おそらく個人的な事情でしょうね。
Going ahead with her own question, Tombo asks why Fuminori needs to know about Ogai, to which he explains that Ogai has gone missing and that a close relative of his is looking for the doctor. Falling into a weaved spider's web, Tombo blurts out that Ogai didn't have any relatives, causing Fuminori to verbally pounce on her before easing off to beg Tombo for help.
先生、僕はどうしても大貝教授に会わなきゃならないんです。彼がいなくなったせいで、行く当てがなくなり困っている子がいるんです。力になってもらえませんか?
She tells him to ring up the police, though in saying this, the narrator reveals how dangerous that is for the hospital/university. Everyone involved with the Ogai incident, Tombo included, would be investigated and whatever the hospital wants to keep hidden would be shown to the world. Luckily, Tombo knows that Fuminori wouldn't go to the police as the reason why the Ogai incident was buried was because the doctor had no relatives. This poses another question, however. How does Fuminori know about the missing doctor? All Tombo can offer is conjecture about the doctor's whereabouts, causing Fuminori to end his line of questioning. Writing his progress down as good in the charts, Tombo tries to schedule another appointment, but before she can ask what time would be best, Fuminori has already left. Back in the eyes of the madman, Fuminori muses over the idea that because he has accepted his new surroundings as the norm, he can live a somewhat normal life. I mean, normal if you're Isaac Clarke, that is. He knows he has a form of agnosia, a real-life disorder wherein a person loses the ability to identify the things around them, and in the case of this story has been extremely exaggerated, and that his chances for survival were slim, so he can't really blame the doctors that saved him. All he can do, at least in his head, is laugh at Tombo and those at the hospital for their failure and call himself unlucky, despite surrendering himself to the fate that he was given, as again, we don't know if there actually is a cure for Fuminori's condition, and it's not like he wants to risk risk anything to find out if Tombo can help him, Fuminori isn't completely alone in the world, as he has a silver lining amidst the decay. Rushing back to his house, Fuminori comments that while his parents being dead does make him sad, he believes he has suffered more than they have. The phrase fate worse than death comes to mind, but because his parents are no longer in the picture, Fuminori doesn't have to worry about them getting uppity at him for living with what he calls a strange girl. Entering his abode, a perfectly human voice rings out, welcoming Fuminori home. Any dread that Fuminori had while outside of his house becomes washed away at the sound of the voice, and he answers back to it, calling out to Saya that he is home. Walking to the house's entrance, Saya, who looks identical to a regular person outside of some observations from Fuminori that bring up how pale her skin is and how odd her hair and eye color are, and Fuminori share some talk about the day's proceedings. It's made obvious that Saya cares immensely for Fuminori as she pulls him into a hug, with even Fuminori's thoughts pointing out that if Saya didn't exist, he would have succumbed to insanity earlier. While Fuminori was dealing with the horrors of the outside world, Saya was painting the house's living room and making dinner for the two. She hasn't finished preparing the food yet, giving Fuminori some time to work on painting the living room. Good to know that a man who can't recognize the world properly is a better painter than I am. The painting of the Sakisaka house originally started in the bedroom, as Fuminori couldn't get a wink of sleep, and has gradually moved to the rest of the house. Not only does the paint help put Fuminori at ease, it also blocks off onlookers from seeing inside the house, as Fuminori is painted over the windows. The only people who know about what is going on inside are the two who live within the house. Before Fuminori can get more of the living room covered in puke green, not my first choice as I would have gone with beige, the most interesting of colors, Saya yells out that soup's on. Bringing the food to him, Saya does express her concern about the smell of paint thinner contained in the living room, though Fuminori tells her that the smell of the outside world is much worse. His perception of reality is already whacked out. What's wrong with getting high on the side? Asking if she is bothered by the smell, Fuminori is told by Saya that as long as he is okay with it, she will be too. Fuminori then tries to enjoy dinner, but it's not like he can stomach any regular food, whether it was made by Saya or not. Saya does know about Fuminori's condition and does resolve to make something that he can eat tomorrow. She'll do this for as long as it takes her to find something that he can eat. Seeing as Saya hasn't touched any of the food she made, Fuminori asks if she's going to eat any of it. Saya replies that she has already eaten, with Fuminori's thoughts filling us in that Saya always eats away from Fuminori. For what reason is yet to be determined, however, Fuminori is not going to force Saya to eat with him. Moving away from dinner, Fuminori informs Saya that he asked about her father, Dr. Ogai, at the hospital today. Although Saya is the one who asked Fuminori to look for her father, it's obvious that she cares way more about Fuminori than her father at this point in time.
So,
心配じゃないのかい、お父さんのこと。
そういうわけじゃないの。
Still, she thanks him for all he has done, and he does the same. Finished with dinner, the two then take a bath and engage in their nightly ritual, though in the middle of their lovemaking, Fuminori has a bit of a break, questioning why Saya does what she does for him. It's because Fuminori was all alone, just like Saya. The next day at college, and back in the narrator perspective, Yo is making today the day she confronts Fuminori about their relationship status. As she is sitting in class waiting for the lecture to start, Yo starts scanning around the hall looking for Fuminori and spots him in a far corner of the room by himself. Usually he sits next to her, but that stopped happening after the accident. When class ends, he is the first to leave, though Yo manages to grab his attention before he can get too far away. Before Yo can ask if the two are a thing, she notices how gaunt and tense Fuminori is, wondering if the man is eating properly or is under a lot of stress. Saddened and hurt by how Fuminori looks, Yo doesn't let it get to her as she asks to speak with him. Moving to the courtyard on campus, Yo bears her heart to Fuminori, telling him that she feels like there's a large weight on his shoulders that's slowly killing him, and that if he needs someone to open up to, he has Koji, Omi, and herself to talk to.
友達ってこんな時のためにいると思うんです。ご家族のことは本当に残念だったと思います。でも咲坂さんは一人ぼっちじゃありません。友くんや大見ちゃんや、それに私がいます。一人で背負い込んだりしなくても、私たちで何とかできることだってあると思うんです。たとえ何もできないにしても、話してさえくれれば、あなたが少しでも楽になるかもしれない。私
崎坂さんの力になりたいんです。他のみんなも同じ気持ちだと。
Fed up and with a cold glare in his eyes, Fuminori tells Yo to shut up and that the two will never be a couple because he hates her. Adding more salt to the already rolling tears of Yo, Fuminori claims that Yo's feelings towards him aren't real and are only the product of Koji and Omi. Not wanting Fuminori to get the satisfaction of seeing her cry, Yo runs away from Fuminori, who has a cruel smile on his face as he watches Yo leave the courtyard. Waiting in the wings is Omi and Koji, who both see a teary-eyed Yo leave in a huff. Omi, not mincing words, calls Fuminori an asshole and tries very hard to not immediately go over to the man and kick his shit in. Koji, on the other hand, while unable to forgive how sadistic Fuminori's rejection of Yo was, is more perplexed than angry. By all accounts, Fuminori was never a cruel person before the incident, confirming to Koji that Fuminori has changed. Wanting some form of justice for Yo, Omi asks Koji if he's just going to let this event go unpunished, to which he says that he doesn't want to let it slide, but there isn't much the two can do, as well what was said to Yo has been said, and telling Fuminori off won't fix that. Still, Omi decides to give Fuminori a piece of her mind while telling Koji to take care of Yo, as his caring nature will be able to deal with Yo's broken heart. The couple then separates, Koji to find Yo and Omi to the Sakisaka household. If only they knew the kind of domino effect they started from this action. Back to Fuminori, though he states that he feels miserable, in the same line he also says that he feels refreshed as he is one step away from being disconnected from his past life. A wave of mixed emotions wash over Fuminori since it's not like he wanted to hurt Yo, and he does display some form of remorse, recognizing that he probably should have ignored her. However, Fuminori fully believes that Yo is just playing to the tune of Koji and Omi, completely disregarding Yo's actual feelings on the matter. Exhausted, both mentally and physically, by his encounter with Yo and the thought of having to ride the packed train back home, Fuminori rests on a coated bench to gather his strength back. A flashback, in the perspective of Fuminori, then happens, explaining to us his stay at the T University Hospital. When he first awoke from his coma, the world was pitch black and his senses were normal. It's when his sight returned did everything fall apart. One saving grace was that because Fuminori had been blind and awake for a period of time, he could come to terms with what happened to him in the surgery. As we will see later, being fully aware when put into the meat dimension is liable to snap anyone's mind in twain. Due to Fuminori's sight being twisted, his other senses fell as well. Deciding that dying would be a much better alternative than to live in a world of meat, Fuminori plotted his own suicide, though on one particularly restless night, a young girl who stood out against the gore visited his room, the girl, of course, being Saya. While being dumbstruck at the sight of her, Saya asks Fuminori an unusual question: "Aren't you afraid of me?" Ignoring the question, Fuminori asks Saya who she is and what she is doing. Realizing that Fuminori isn't scared of her, Saya goes to leave, but Fuminori pulls her right back in, asking the girl he just met if he can hold her hand. That's a power play if I've ever seen one, and it pays off for Fuminori. Whilst holding her hand, Fuminori tells Saya his predicament, causing her to take interest in the man and ask if she can visit again tomorrow night.
あなたって面白い。明日の夜もまた来ていい？
あ、そりゃもういいのかい？君はそんなことをして。
大丈夫よ。夜は私のものだから。
Over the rest of Fuminori's stay at the hospital, he and Saya share multiple conversations, with one of the bigger ones being about Saya's past. She originally lived with Ogai in the suburbs till he stopped returning home, forcing Saya to look for him in the hospital. Her stay has lasted around 2 months and has come up with bupkis. Noting the length of her stay, Fuminori asks Saya why she isn't in school, to which the girl says she doesn't need to be as Ogai taught her everything. Indeed, contrasting her youthful appearance, Saya has a wealth of knowledge that is quite unsettling. Not that Fuminori cares, mind you. What is something to mentally toil about is just how Saya avoids being caught, as before she met Fuminori, she did like to visit other patients in the psych ward and scare them. It's not like the nurses would believe the patients, and in fact, the local legend about the hospital is based on Saya. On Fuminori's final night at the hospital, he asked Saya to stay with him at his home if he could look for her father. While not giving an immediate answer besides telling Fuminori that he has to be discreet when searching for Ogai, Fuminori learns Saya's answer when she appears in his house.
僕にはもう帰る場所なんてない。
Leaving the past and moving into the present, we return to Omi and our narrator outside of the Sakisaka home. While still slightly tilted over what happened at the courtyard, Omi has calmed down just a bit to the point that she can acknowledge how off the house's front yard is. Not only is it unkempt, a strange smell, one of rotten meat, is permeating around the house. The shutters have also been closed, probably since the day's morning, Omi guesses. Her anger flares back up again when she doesn't get a response from the intercom, and when Omi undoes the front paneling of it, she sees that it has been disconnected. Enraged by Fuminori's disgusting, despicable lack of respect that he has for his friends, Omi barges through the household's front gate and door, though she immediately regrets this decision, as not only does the unbearable smell from before hit her much harder while standing in the house's entrance, an all too familiar, for us at least, cacophony of noise berates her ears. Having already made a poor life choice, Omi decides to follow it with another, calling out into the darkness of the house to get a response from the disembodied voice. Though it doesn't respond back to Omi's call, she does hear the sounds of something wet scuttling its way deeper into the unknown depths of the house. Any anger left within Omi has become extinguished with fear, as only Fuminori should be living inside, yet his shoes aren't in the foyer. Figuring, hey, I'm on a roll of making the absolute worst decisions in my life, Omi decides to venture into the tenebrous main hallway of the squalid abode. Inside, Omi chooses to be as quiet as a field mouse so as to not arouse whatever the semblance of a voice belongs to as she inspects the kitchen. Though the scene she finds seems superficially ordinary, the set dressing of the ominous stillness within the house and the setting sun dyeing everything in a nauseating shade of orange clues Omi in that something is exceptionally wrong. Yelling out again, Omi admonishes herself for her dangerously stupid behavior before feeling something cold seeping through her pantyhose. Clinging to both Omi's foot and the home's floor is a bizarre slime-like substance, which is the source of the nauseating odor percolating throughout the house and yard. Being nestled deep within the oppressive structure now, Omi's fight-or-flight instincts kick in, but because she has to turn her back towards the Stygian darkness seeping out from the living room to escape, and her own morbid fascination with what lurks within the deep blackness is driving her to probe the unknown contents of the den, she elects to explore the alien space. Feeling the side of the wall, Omi finds and flicks the light switch, revealing the mishmash of colors the room has been painted in. Falling to the ground in shock, Omi's attention is pulled away from the state of the den by a heap of tendrils wrapped around her body, one constricting her neck, poised to snap it in an instant. When she tries to fend off the tentacle on her neck, more shoot towards her body from the ceiling. Opting to look up, an action the narrator notes as the pinnacle of Omi's shoddy option selections, Omi absorbs the indescribable appearance of the horror hanging on the roof, splintering her mind. In seconds, even before she's able to scream, Omi is torn apart by the unknowable beast and it starts to feast on her remains. A little while after this, Fuminori, who we are in the perspective of, returns back to his abode and finds the front door wide open. Not only that, but he hears the sounds of smacking lips and smells a sweet fragrance that reminds him of Saya. Checking the living room, Fuminori finds a weird grass-like growth sprouting from the floor and Saya eating what he describes as fruit/vegetable balls. Calling out to her, Fuminori notes that Saya seems to be embarrassed, almost like she was caught eating a person. The feeling of embarrassment is turned around on Fuminori, but instead of letting that get him down, Fuminori picks up one of the globules and eats it despite Saya trying to dissuade him from doing that. To her surprise, Fuminori enjoys the taste of the orb and he asks how she prepared something so delicious. Apparently, all she did was tear the meat off of Omi's body and melted it down to make it easier to consume. And while I'm specifying that Fuminori is eating Omi, Saya doesn't tell Fuminori that he is. Also, this isn't the first time Saya has consumed human flesh, as she usually finds unsuspecting victims in the nearby park to munch on, and Saya has already eaten the best parts on Omi's body, proving that point is true. Having found something that Fuminori can eat, the two resolve to eat together going forward as they pack up Omi's leftovers in Tupperware and store them in the fridge. A small interlude then plays, it covering the urban legend surrounding T University Hospital, hospital. Nothing of note is learned from this scene outside of Saya's consumption of meat has no limits, as not only has she allegedly eaten cats and dogs, but also organs used for transplants and babies too. With the most pointless idol in a story ever over, we jump to the cafeteria 3 days after Omi's murder in the perspective of our narrator. Koji and Yo, who are sitting in the cafeteria as they regularly do, are attempting to get into contact with Omi to no avail. No one knows where she is besides us and Saya, so while Omi's parents have filed a missing persons report, something tells me that she won't be found. At least, not as a whole person. Koji is hopeful, as is Yo, a deep irony to be sure, though she is still rattled by her conversation with Fuminori. What was once 4 friends hanging out in the cafeteria is now only 2. Yo asks Koji if he has already checked all the places Omi could have gone to, which he has, though he is selectively telling the truth as he doesn't say to Yo that Omi went to Fuminori's house. A bell then chimes, signaling the start of the two's next period, and while Koji gets up to leave, Yo doesn't, too sullen to head to class. Following Koji, our narrator speaks Koji's thoughts of worry, as not only is his girlfriend missing, 2 of his closest friends have changed for the worse. The first thing Koji did after finding out that Omi was missing was to question Fuminori, though he legitimately doesn't know what happened to her, making his denial of ever meeting her truthful, as again, he didn't know he was eating Omi or that her and Koji were listening in on him and Yo. Koji entertains the idea that Omi perhaps didn't actually go to the Sakisaga house, but his only reason for doing this is so that he doesn't have to accept the possibility that Fuminori lied to him about his involvement with her. Likewise, he told the cops what district and train station Omi went to and only that, so as to not drag Fuminori into the mix as he is still recovering. Koji wanted to help with the search, but because he doesn't know if Omi made it to Fuminori's house and the man himself denying the idea that she actually made it there, Koji's hands are tied and all he can do is accept this logic, which is about as unstable as a house of cards in a tornado. Still, suspicions towards Fuminori are growing within Koji's being, and on an off chance, Koji spots him leaving the university. Medical students have mandatory class for the day, leading to Koji wondering just where Fuminori is going, so much so that he starts to follow his friend. Unexpectedly, Fuminori isn't heading home or to Tombo's office. Instead, the train that Fuminori and Koji boarded take the two to a quaint residential area. Tailing close behind, Koji, just by watching the way Fuminori moves, learns that Fuminori has been here multiple times before and it doesn't take long for him to reach his destination. Ogai's house. Taking cues from Omi, Fuminori enters the house without knocking on the door, and while this is still trespassing, Koji checks the mailbox to find an enormous amount of parcels, confirming the house is abandoned. Looking around for a stakeout location, Koji finds one in the form of a playground nearby. He then sits for an extended period of time overlooking the house, and when night rolls around, he spots Fuminori leaving Ogai's residence. Wanting more insight into what Fuminori was searching for, Koji follows in both his and Omi's footsteps, committing his own crime of trespassing. Welcoming Koji inside the dimly lit facsimile of a home is stale air tinged with a hint of overflowing septic tank. Not wanting to explore in the dark, Koji flicks a light switch, though nothing happens, forcing Koji to use his oil lighter. Deathly quiet is the house, but there is evidence that someone, or something, used to live there. However, that was from a long time ago, as a mountain of dust has caked everything inside, prompting Koji to assume that the resident had left with only the clothes on his back. Letting his imagination run wild with what happened to Ogai, Koji fears that he may have stepped into the telltale heart and curses the fact that he doesn't have a mag light. Going upstairs, as Fuminori's footprints lead up there, Koji finds Ogai's study, which is lined with a vast array of books, some covering high-level medical science and research, while others containing much more esoteric knowledge. Sticking out amongst the collection is the trait die Schief, the Ars Magnum et Ultima, and the Voynich manuscript, all 3 tomes related to studies in the occult. Seeing these 3 books causes Koji to second-guess himself, as he thinks a doctor wouldn't have eldritch manuals in his private stash, but I'd be more surprised if a high-ranking doctor didn't. Putting down the incomprehensible writing, like seriously, look up the Voynich manuscript if you don't believe me, Koji finds a horror protagonist's best friend, an L-shaped flashlight. Going off the finder's keeper's rule, as this is clearly Fuminori's flashlight, Koji snags it for himself. In doing so, however, Koji is able to see the ooze stains that are plastered all around the house with the stronger light, the sight of which causes a bit of nausea for Koji, but he doesn't let it stop him from investigating the bedroom next to the study and finding nothing of interest besides some suitcases. Descending back down the stairs, Koji once again examines the den, finding the epicenter of the slime before going to the kitchen. Though there is clearly something in the sink, Koji doesn't want to find out what it is, as it would add more fuel to his imagination, which is turned against him at this point in time. Instead, he looks towards the bathroom near the kitchen, and while his imagination is telling him that the dead body of Ogai is clearly lying in wait there, he braces himself and opens the door. What he finds is a dead body, several in fact. Coating the perimeter of the tub a shade of obsidian is the dried blood of several small animals. Bits of flesh and bone are also housed inside the bath, though for how long is indeterminable. An irregular detail about the bones is that the meat was cleanly picked off, almost like it had been melted for easier consumption. Teeth marks on the bones prove that theory true. Racking his head around this horrid sight, Koji doesn't hear Fuminori sneak up on him until he hears his name being called out.
どうした、Koji?
Turning around, Koji illuminates Fuminori's blank face before being told that he is trespassing, though such an accusation holds no weight when both parties are. Koji tells his friend such, but Fuminori, while looking inside the tub, answers that he knows the owner of the house and was asked to find something here. If we're going off that logic, that means I know Ric Flair because my friend met him once. Koji doesn't buy it for a second, asking how and who to Fuminori, but being slightly cheerful in the perverse kind of way, Fuminori tells Koji that he will personally introduce his friend to the one who saved him. Spotting that phrasing, Koji asks if this unknown person is the reason why Fuminori is acting the way he is now, though a frigid glare and a reprimanding from Fuminori beats down Koji and he doesn't get an answer. Where once a close friend stood, now stands a mimic with a frozen heart. Said impersonator has returned back to his house, mentally lambasting Koji's own curiosity and describing what he did as a breach of privacy. This show of care disgusts Fuminori to the point that he concludes that if Koji is going to keep sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong, something bad is going to happen to him. Moving away from the budding murder plot that will happen later, Fuminori is shocked to find things of value at Ogai's residence, as Saya told him that he would find nothing in the abandoned sty. Though because Koji now knows where it is, gathering the important materials from there will prove to be difficult for Fuminori. A voice then rings out, breaking Fuminori out from his thoughts. Fuminori's next-door neighbor, Yosuke Suzumi, voices his concern for him as the middle-aged painter has taken notice of the declining state of the Sakisaka yard. Yosuke offers to tend to it, though Fuminori rejects the help, mentally assuming that the only reason why Yosuke would want to clean the yard is because it's an eyesore to the painter. Putting on a fake smile, Fuminori recedes back into his house, all the while complaining about people not leaving him alone. Still standing outside, Yosuke is puzzled by the oddity of Fuminori's behavior. The Fuminori Yosuke knew wasn't like the one he just interacted with, and the man wonders if the stress of living alone is causing Fuminori to develop mental problems. Heading back inside his house, Yosuke discusses his thoughts to his wife and daughter over dinner. The key issue the Suzumis have is the visible funk emanating from the Sakisaka yard, though Yosuke points out how secretive Fuminori is, as the storm shutters at his house have always been shut.
あの草むらの中に死んだ猫でもいるんじゃないかしら。でも住んでいて気づかないのかしらね、あの匂いに。
まさかとは思うが、生ゴミをそのまま庭に捨てているんじゃあるまいな。
そんな、いくらなんでもそこまで。
いや、今の様子だとやりかねん。一日中ずっと雨戸を閉め切って何をやってるのかもわからない。どういう暮らしをしているのやら。
Ironically, Yosuke's daughter asks if Fuminori has gone crazy, a question that isn't far off the mark. One thing that is for certain, however, is that Fuminori won't get better until he admits he has a problem, as Yosuke explains, but that's like trying to get blood from a stone or sensible discourse on Twitter. Leaving Yosuke and our narrator to go back to Fuminori, he's in his bedroom lying awake much like I do, though his reason is because Saya has taken one of her nightly walks and hasn't returned yet. They usually last about 2 hours, but it's been longer than that. How long? It's 5 a.m., meaning she's been out for the entire night. Hopefully she didn't go to get a carton of cigarettes and milk. In the meantime, Fuminori has tried to busy himself with painting more of the house while waiting for her return, but the lack of sleep has sapped his concentration, making him unable to do much of any work. Again, another feeling I can relate to. Luckily, before the crushing atmosphere of loneliness can truly affect Fuminori, Saya returns. And she didn't return home alone, as Fuminori notices the supplies she's carrying and asks, "What are those?" No, they're not shoes, they're Fuminori's charts and records from the hospital. This surprises Fuminori as that is not a short walk and he asks just what Saya is planning on doing with them. Being blunt, Saya tells Fuminori that she's going to study them to presumably get a better understanding of his condition. And she does so, muttering that what Fuminori has can't be fixed by a human doctor and that even for her it might be a bit tricky.
君、わかるのか？こういうの。
パパにいろいろと教わったから。なるほどね。そういうこと。これじゃあいつまで経っても直せないよね。
直せないのか？
人間のお医者さんじゃね。
Although Saya is content with reading more of Fuminori's records, and she is doing so at incredible speed, Fuminori wants him and her to go to bed. Going to bed, of course, being code talk for sex, and though it's Fuminori asking for it tonight, his thoughts do reveal that Saya's appetite for intercourse is a bit unnatural. Let's just say that Saya puts nymphomaniacs to shame. The couple also isn't using protection, and that's because Saya demanded that they didn't. She well and truly wants Fuminori's kids, and while he points out the amount of strain that her body will face when pregnant, Saya politely teases Fuminori over the fact that he hasn't put 2 and 2 together. Mans hasn't figured out that he's sticking his dick in a Shogoff, and no, not the MGE kind. Still, that doesn't stop Fuminori blowing like Old Faithful from Saya's golf ball sucking skills. And while the two do have a debate over whether Saya should swallow or not, as Fuminori thinks it's odd for Saya to do so while Saya doesn't care as long as she gets his semen. What, does she think she has ownership of it? They do drift off to sleep. The next day, and back with our narrator, we see what Yosuke is up to. After having sent off his wife and daughter to work and school respectively, Yosuke settles into his upstairs studio so he can begin painting, the activity he enjoys the most. Though he is not the breadwinner of the family, he does earn a keep from doing design work that helps supply his quiet lifestyle. Our narrator divulges that Yosuke is a house husband as he takes joy in doing the housework, though it is described that the man is a little bit obsessive. Guy knows everything about his house in a given moment, from how fresh the flowers are to how many cubes of ice are in the freezer. Because of this nature, Yosuke realizes that he needs to buy some OJ and bath supplies for the house, but when he leaves his studio and heads downstairs to get his car keys, Yosuke feels a breeze hit him in the main hallway of his abode. All the windows should be closed, but sure enough, when Yosuke enters the living room, he spots an open window with a hole burned into it. Though it is not specified what created the hole, Yosuke surmises that whoever did used a strong chemical to do so, as the window itself isn't broken, but its lock has been undone. Anger and fear starts to grasp onto Yosuke as he switches out his palette knife he left the studio with for an ashtray, thinking that it would be a much better weapon for who, or whatever is still in his home. Listing down the places the invader could have gone to, Yosuke checks the guest room of his house, finding it empty. Relief starts to well up in the terrified painter, but it's soon snatched away when a greasy feeler latches itself to his ankle and pulls him down. Searching for the source of the slimy tentacle, Yosuke finds it underneath the sofa and starts to frantically scream as the space between the couch and floor is so small only a creature could fit into it. His attempt to stand back up is thwarted as more appendages shoot out from the sofa and keep him held down. A gargled voice then pleads to Yosuke to calm down, and though that doesn't happen, it doesn't stop the thing underneath the couch from climbing on top of Yosuke and shoving its limbs into his brain, knocking the painter out. While Yosuke is living through the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, Yo and Koji are meeting with Tombo to discuss Fuminori. The day Fuminori went to Ogai's house was one of his appointment days, and though Tombo tried to call him, he never picked up. When Tombo asks how Fuminori is at school, Koji responds with honest truth, causing Yo to shudder. Recognizing the duo as medical students, Tombo asks if they want to see Fuminori's charts. Koji is baffled by such a statement, but Tombo clarifies that someone has already stolen them and admits that her question was a loaded one. Though Tombo is relieved that Yo and Koji didn't steal the records, Koji's mind is racing, trying to deduce who the culprit is. Koji immediately casts blame onto Fuminori, as does Tombo, but both don't speak out their thoughts. Instead, Tombo asks for any relevant information, causing Koji to mention Ogai. Hearing his name, Tombo grimaces before explaining to Koji that Fuminori has brought up that name before. She then tells Koji, and by extension Yo, that Ogai was originally a professor at T University but was dismissed 6 months ago due to a series of scandals. That's all Tombo says, as she can't elaborate on the scandals to outsiders. Seeing that as the case, Koji accuses Fuminori of being involved with Omi's disappearance in front of Yo and Tombo. Though uncomfortable with this claim, Yo lets Koji continue with his diatribe, which ends with him asking Tombo what exactly happened 6 months ago. This Hail Mary has mixed results, as while Tombo doesn't instantly provide an answer, she tells Koji to give her some time to do her own investigating into the matter and asks that the two exchange phone numbers to keep in contact. Back to Yosuke, his consciousness has returned. Hooray! Or it would be if he wasn't in the bowels of a sarlacc. Remember how Fuminori and I said he was lucky that he was able to come to terms with the accident before waking up in hell itself? Well, Yosuke doesn't have that luxury, and just like an unimpressive mortal staring upon the unearthly splendor of the crawling chaos, his mind crumples under sheer terror. The more Yosuke panics, the more his new surroundings overwhelm his being. No matter where he goes, all the see more crawling or contact he has with Tom at all, Tombo says, as she can't elaborate on the scandals to outsiders. Seeing that as the case, Koji accuses Fuminori of being involved with Omi's disappearance in front of Yo and Tombo. Though uncomfortable with this claim, Yo lets Koji continue with his diatribe, which ends with him asking Tombo what exactly happened 6 months ago. This Hail Mary has mixed results, as while Tombo doesn't instantly provide an answer, she tells Koji to give her some time to do her own investigating into the matter and asks that the two exchange phone numbers to keep in contact. Back to Yosuke, his consciousness has returned. Hooray! Or it would be if he wasn't in the bowels of a sarlacc. Remember how Fuminori and I said he was lucky that he was able to come to terms with the accident before waking up in hell itself? Well, Yosuke doesn't have that luxury, and just like an unimpressive mortal staring upon the unearthly splendor of the crawling chaos, his mind crumples under sheer terror. The more Yosuke panics, the more his new surroundings overwhelm his being. No matter where he goes, all the painter sees is the rancid guts of some foul beast long forgotten to time plastering everything. Yosuke somehow manages to make it back to his studio, but the sights do not change, causing him to thrash his easel into pieces, some of them lodging themselves into Yosuke's hand. Thoroughly defeated, Yosuke falls to his knees and prays to whoever will hear him. He then hears the distorted voices of his wife and daughter. Mistaking the voices as the one from before, Yosuke arms himself with one of the larger easel splinters and prepares to strike when one of the, in his head, beasts heads into the studio. Yosuke's wife is his first victim as he stabs the easel piece into her body before stomping her into red paste. Retrieving his weapon, Yosuke then spots his daughter, who starts to run away, but he gives chase and catches her when she trips. With a newfound bloodlust, Yosuke repeatedly stabs her body to the point that it's unrecognizable. Still, the nightmare that Yosuke is in doesn't change. He only becomes more demoralized when he leaves his house. It is only when Yosuke's mental faculties have truly given out does Saya make her appearance to the broken man. Confirming our suspicions over Saya's appearance, Yosuke sees her like Fuminori, meaning that whatever Saya is, it isn't human. Wanting to make sure that is the case, Saya asks Yosuke how she looks, though in a rather creepy tone, the painter tells Saya that she looks cute. Saya pats herself on the back as her experiment was a success, but as she's doing that, Yosuke stalks his way towards her, an abhorrent idea in his mind. Though she senses something is off, Saya only starts to run away after Yosuke tears off her dress. Fueled by sadistic glee, Yosuke rushes into the Sakisaka house and corners Saya. Yosuke then proceeds to rape Saya, all the while she bells out for Fuminori to save her, but he is nowhere to be seen. That's because he was out searching Ogai's house and finally found something useful: 3 photographs. Each photograph is of an outside location, and each one of them has a different address on the back. The photos are old, but Fuminori is hoping that Saya knows where they were taken. Hurriedly returning back home to show them to Saya, Fuminori hears her cries and the sounds of FB Yosuke when he comes near the front door. Ice fills his veins as he darts inside his house to find a monster brutalizing Saya. Wasting no time, Fuminori picks up a nearby meat cleaver and begins to hack up Yosuke. He doesn't stop until he breaks the cleaver. With his composure regained, Fuminori hears Saya sobbing and rushes over to comfort her. Fuminori blames himself for not being there to protect Saya, but she starts apologizing to him. Pulling her into a tighter hug, Fuminori tells her that she didn't do anything wrong, but Saya admits that she did mess around with Yosuke's brain. She gave the painter the same condition that Fuminori has. This revelation baffles Fuminori, but that doesn't stop Saya from continuing her confession. Since birth, Saya has had the ability to change the inner workings of other living beings. However, to fully reshape another animal, Saya has to study them in intimate detail. By using her interactions with Fuminori and reading his records, she was able to understand his condition and recreate it with another person. Saya's reasoning for testing on Yosuke was that she wanted to have more people that would be kind to her. Remembering the trauma that he caused her upsets Saya, though Fuminori pulls her once again into a tight embrace. Running down what she has just said, Fuminori points out to Saya a misunderstanding she has. Fuminori wasn't kind to her because of the accident, but because of the time they spent together. Through her tears, a smile grows on Saya's face as the two's bond shines against the darkness. The two then share a passionate kiss. Realizing he hasn't put his emotions regarding Saya into words, Fuminori tries to speak up, but Saya cuts him off to ask what he desires the most. Since she experimented with Yosuke, she can fix Fuminori's injury, but only if he wants it. Fuminori is then given a choice: have his brain fixed or continue to live with Saya. I'll be frank here. I'm not going to cover ending 1 as it isn't really an ending. All that happens is that Fuminori gets cured, winds up in a mental institute for the murders of the Suzumis, and has one last conversation with Saya via text messages. Choosing to get cured doesn't even unlock the CG library, basically stating that this ending is a bad end in classical VN terms. And before I end this tangent and get back on with the recap, if a story has bad ends, I won't go over them, and if I do decide to, it'll be in this throwaway manner. Ruminating over the past few months, Fuminori wonders what he would have said to Saya if she was able to cure him on the spot the day they first met. He suspects that if he did get cured, he would regret it for the rest of his life, as he never would have forged a relationship with Saya. Sidestepping Saya's question, Fuminori asks who the man was, with Saya responding that he was the one from next door. Now, knowing that he killed Yosuke doesn't bother Fuminori, though it's gotten across in such a way that paints Fuminori as a misanthrope. Mainly because he takes umbrage with Yosuke complaining about the Sakisaka yard, and that because the painter did that, he deserved to be experimented on by Saya. As the blood from Yosuke drips down Fuminori's face, the man comes to an epiphany over what he truly lost in the accident, and that even if Saya were to cure his issue, he would never be the same person again. On his own accord, Fuminori tells Saya that no human doctor can heal him, and that for Saya to claim as such would mean that she isn't human. The cat has finally been let out of the bag, with Saya herself inadvertently propping up Fuminori's assertion by not directly looking at him. Accepting the truth, Fuminori placates Saya's unease by telling an analogy based around a manga character that suffered from the same predicament as Fuminori. The character in question saw regular people as rocks and robots as women and fell in love with a robot. As he is telling the tale, Fuminori is slicing off meat from Yosuke's body so he can store it for later. Saya asks if Fuminori is alright with how his life will be now, to which the man answers yes before asking about Yosuke's wife and daughter.
ふみのり。
ごめん。今はそんな気分になれないよね。でも、死んじゃえば肉は肉だし、捨てるのももったいないと思わないか。また冷蔵庫にしまっておこうよ。
あなたはいいの？
いいよ。あと、隣の家に奥さんと娘さんがいるはずなんだ。旦那がいなくなったら騒ぐかもしれないし、通報される前に飼っとこうと思うんだな。
Avoiding the question, Saya again asks if Fuminori is okay with throwing away his humanity, prompting Fuminori to finish his tale. The man in the manga did exactly that so he could be with the love of his life. In Fuminori's own words, a happy ending, but I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of context has been removed from whatever manga Fuminori is drawing from so that he can make it seem like the ending was a good one. It'd be like me saying that the ending of part 1 is a happy ending because Dio technically died, completely ignoring the fact that Jonathan dies and Dio resurfaces in part 3. That's why context is important. Finally able to put words to his emotions, Fuminori tells Saya that the only thing he needs is her, everything else be damned. Pulling her into another hug, Fuminori tells Saya that he loves her. Though Saya still has lingering apprehension over the two's course in life, she happily accepts Fuminori's oath.
言ってもいいよね。さや、君のこと愛してる。
あなたのこと後悔させたくないのに、なのに。でも嬉しい。私って身勝手だよね。
身勝手でいいよ。さやのわがままなら聞くよ、僕は。
Both are willing to entertain the other's selfishness, a sign that, despite the two having a real love for the other, hints at how toxic this relationship is and going to be moving forward. Getting around to answering Fuminori's earlier question, Saya tells him that the wife and daughter were killed by Yosuke. That relieves Fuminori, as the only thing that he and Saya have to do is pack away their meat. After doing that, Fuminori shows Saya the pictures from Ogai's house, with Saya recognizing one of them. She has been to the lodgings at Tochigi Prefecture, or as Ogai would call it, his cabin in the woods. That brings up a question, however. Why have 3 of these cabins? Fuminori cogitates that Ogai was doing a bit of loving it or listing it and had picked the 3 cottages to determine which one would be the best lair. Looks like the one at Tochigi was the perfect candidate. Unfortunately, it's a 3-hour drive from Tokyo to the hideaway. The professor might not even be there, as Saya has tried to call him before, but Ogai hasn't answered his phone. Taking a chance, Fuminori promises to check out the country house tomorrow, but Saya pouts at that proposition, citing the distance as the biggest factor for Fuminori not to go.
明日にでも行ってみようかな、ここ。
でもここ遠いんでしょ？
Fuminori assures her that he won't be gone for too long and that he will find her father, but it's as if Saya no longer cares about Ogai since she has Fuminori. She even tells him to forget about the professor, astonishing Fuminori and leading him to ask Saya if she is worried about her father. Saya isn't, voicing what I said 2 sentences ago. Ogai isn't really Saya's father, and though he did teach Saya many things about the world and loved her in his own way, their relationship was not the same as Saya's and Fuminori's. Noting the trace of loneliness in Saya's words, Fuminori asks if she is alright with just him. She is, as is Fuminori, but he honestly wants to meet Ogai as the professor must know more about Saya.
本当に僕だけでもいいのか？
うん。ふみのりは嫌？さやと二人っきりじゃ。
いや、でも、そうだな。やっぱり、大貝教授には会ってみたい。さやのことをもっとよく知りたいから、僕以外にさやのことを知ってる人がいるなら、ぜひ会ってみたい。
そうなんだ。
There is another reason, but Fuminori doesn't say it out loud. His thoughts mention that there is a plan Fuminori wants to set in motion, though its scope is unknown at this moment. It does involve the cabin, however. Showing how observant she is, Saya inquires if Fuminori wants family and friends to spend time with. That would be preferable to Fuminori, but he quickly mentions that Saya will always be number one in his heart. The night ends with Saya formulating her own plan, but it's a mystery just like Fuminori's. Since we've been in the headspace of Fuminori for an extended period of time, the next day we catch up with our nameless narrator and Koji at T University. He just got out of his last class for the day and is heading to join Yo for lunch when he gets a phone call. Reaching for his phone, Koji chides himself for going for his new phone when it's his old phone that's ringing. Picking it up, Koji sees that it's Fuminori calling him. Uneasiness starts to worm its way into Koji, but he answers the phone. Fuminori, who knows that Koji is finished with school for the day, wants to speak to Koji out in the parking lot right now. A flood of different emotions hit Koji, but he ultimately decides to go to the parking lot where, true to his word, Fuminori is waiting. It has been a while since the two have last had an encounter, but with the two standing in the light this time, Koji can definitely tell Fuminori has changed. Where once a tense expression laid is now replaced with a calm demeanor, yet under the surface of Fuminori's relaxed attitude, Koji knows something is up. Being selectively upfront as only he knows what he's planning, Fuminori asks if Koji can help him with the investigation into Ogai. Asking a question of his own, Koji inquires into Fuminori's change of heart, but all the man says that Koji doesn't have a choice seeing as he looked around Ogai's suburban house as well. Though Koji is aware of the malice dripping behind Fuminori's mask, he does abide by Fuminori's request of needing a lift to the cabin and starts his accord. This is in spite of Koji being gobsmacked over how far away Fuminori's destination is. While the most awkward car ride is about to kick off, we spectate alongside our narrator over what Yo is doing. She's impatiently wondering where Koji is and letting her own loneliness overrun her existence. Sounds like Yo shares something in common amongst two characters we deeply know. Going over the events of the previous 2 weeks, Yo starts to realize that, yeah, Koji's and Omi's actions weren't coincidental. However, Yo takes this newfound information and starts blaming herself for Omi's disappearance as it's the only thing Yo thinks she can do. A text message breaks Yo out of her self-loathing, but the sender of it is Omi, a logical impossibility. Of course, Yo doesn't know that, but the message that Omi sent telling Yo to come to the Sakisaka house by herself is lacking the woman's personality. Yo shoots a text back asking if the person sending the messages is Omi, and while she waits to receive a response, Yo's mind tries to reach a conclusion over who has Omi's phone and why they are sending texts to Yo. She also panics a little bit inside as whoever has Omi's phone has access to the many private conversations that Yo had with Omi, no doubt about Fuminori. Speaking of him, Yo gets another message, this one asking her if she wants to know about Fuminori. Having no doubt in her mind anymore, Yo knows she's not talking to Omi, causing the downtrodden girl to fall back into self-loathing. Not knowing what to do, Yo starts to dial Koji's number, but a dreadful thought prevents her from doing so. The one with Omi's phone might be nearby, watching Yo's every move. The earlier messages read more like a threat now. Indecisiveness coils around Yo like a boa, as she would much rather run away than face whoever has the phone, but Yo knows that if she does run away, she could never live it down. Facing her cowardice head-on, Yo arrives at the front gate of the Sakisaka residence, unaware of the scheme that she has fallen into. A deluge of ideas pour inside Yo's mind as she attempts to ring the intercom, but unlike the last person who did it, Yo does get a proper entry into the house per the words of the newest message she receives. This startles Yo, and she starts to look for the voyeur spying on her, spotting movement on the second-floor bedroom of the house. Cowardice once again rises up in Yo to the point that she starts sobbing uncontrollably, forcing the unseen watcher to send another message. Not looking at it, Yo instead trudges into the house. The first thing that hits her is the stench, followed by the lack of light within the foreboding cage. Surveying the main hall, Yo finds out that Fuminori isn't in, as his shoes are missing from the shoe cupboard, but that doesn't catch Yo's attention like her next discovery. Omi's shoes are in the cupboard. Yo tries to deny that the shoes are Omi's, but with some uncharacteristically quick thinking, Yo learns that they are when she speed dials Omi's phone and hears it reverberate throughout the gloom. It's centered on the bedroom, but it doesn't beep for long as Saya catches onto Yo's gamble and quickly silences the device. Taking a move from Omi's playbook, Yo calls out into the pitch-black recesses of the residency, but no one answers. Arduously making her climb up the stairs towards the bedroom, Yo preoccupies her mind with thoughts far away from the situation she's found herself in while calling out for Omi and Fuminori. Reaching the chamber, Yo slowly enters, finding the room void of anything save for the debilitating artwork of a loon. Ambushing Yo at the exact moment her spirit has withered away, Saya sends her tendrils out to restrain Yo. What makes matters worse is that Saya also forcibly tears Yo's breasts free from her blouse and starts to fondle them. Horrified by what is happening to her, Yo tries to break free, but Saya's clinch is like steel, rendering Yo unable to get away. However, Saya lets go of Yo, though she used up all her energy in the struggle, leaving Yo defenseless. The only action she can take is to not look at the blob that attacked her, as doing so would decimate any remaining sanity Yo has left. Saya, on the other hand, types out a message for Yo, which turns out to be an unwarranted and quite vulgar compliment on her body. Pushed over the edge, Yo curls into the fetal position, an action which earns a cruel laugh from Saya. The last lines of the message expose Saya as a green-eyed monster, as she believed Yo was trying to steal Fuminori away by using her body. Wanting to defile that body, Saya rapes Yo, sneering at her rival's misery when Yo cries out for help. Drawing closer and closer to oblivion, Yo hears the voice of a girl exuding equal auras of innocence and maliciousness, telling her that she isn't going to die. Instead, Yo will suffer a much worse fate, joining the Sakisaka family. Elsewhere, the most maladroit carpool is still going on. Fuminori has closed himself off from conversation, leaving Koji high and dry. He does take an extended peek at Fuminori's face, but he still can't decipher the warnings that he's getting from his former best friend. What frightens Koji the most is how determined Fuminori is, almost like he's not going to let anyone stop him from creating the future he wants. Wanting to gauge a reaction from Fuminori, Koji brings up Omi. Despite Fuminori saying that he's worried, his tone of voice ascertains that he isn't, something that Koji calls Fuminori out on. This puts Fuminori on the defensive, but he still asserts that he doesn't know where Omi is. Frustrated to the point of wanting to pummel Fuminori, Koji can only think of one word to describe him: callous. If Koji was dealing with the old, frightful Fuminori, he could just beat answers out of him, but this new one is fearless and, worst of all, sneaky when it comes to his intentions. Perhaps killing Yosuke brought about this evolution to Fuminori's character. Continuing the discussion, Koji tells Fuminori that Omi did see what played out in the courtyard, and for a brief moment, Fuminori puts on a show of sympathy for Yo. Koji, however, takes it as pity, and though he is wrong to do so, as our narrator points out Fuminori's mournful smile, with how he's been acting, it makes sense that Koji takes it as such. Still, Fuminori doesn't do himself any favors with what he says next about Yo. The rest of the car ride is in silence until the dynamic duo try to locate the isolated road the cabin is on. Fuminori is the one who cites it, and even though Koji is baffled at the state of said road, when he is given the photograph, he confirms that they found it. At the end of the lonely path lies an equally forlorn log cabin. Making haste, not waste, Fuminori is out of Koji's Honda Accord quicker than you can scold me for using such a boomer saying. Following right behind with a flashlight in tow, Koji searches the decrepit lodge alongside Fuminori. Experiencing flashbacks to his previous search at a rundown dump, Koji finds two things: Jack and shit. That's because this cabin only contains the bare essentials for living, almost as if the house looking plain was the point. Exiting the chalet, Koji finds a locked door buried into the ground and kicks it open, just like how Fuminori did with the front door, uncovering a set of stairs leading downward towards the basement. Yet, it too is devoid of any clues. Koji's distrust of Fuminori reaches its zenith as he begins to hypothesize that Fuminori was just lying about Ogai being at the house. The last place that Koji examines is the backyard, with the only notable thing back there being a well that has no bucket or pulley and is dried up. Leaning over it, Koji tries to determine why Ogai needed a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Fuminori's statement from earlier, the one about how Ogai needed a place that was away from nosy meddlers, replays in Koji's mind and helps him connect the dots. The house is an obvious mock-up. Gleaning that, Koji calls Tombo to see if she knows anything about this mysterious shelter, but all he gets is voicemail. Reckoning that this is the only chance he'll get to send out a call to Tombo while Fuminori is prowling around, Koji leaves a message and then hangs up. Koji is still worried that Tombo won't be of any help, as both he and Yo are unable to decide if she could be trusted, but Tombo is the only beacon that Koji can look towards at the moment. This stray assessment reminds Koji that he didn't tell Yo about his change of plans for the day, but when he calls her number, there is a delay before she picks it up. On the other end of the line, Koji hears an odd squelching noise, but as it turns out, it's Yo sobbing. In a hysteric tone, Koji asks if his friend is alright, to which Yo answers in a pained voice that she was attacked by a monster. That's not the worst of it, however, as Yo exclaims that her body is falling apart. Yo expresses that she's melting and even tells Koji that her ear is now gone and her fingers have shaped themselves into, well, something that isn't fingers.
何があった？おい、つくわ！大丈夫か？
Koji curses the fact that he can't do anything besides listen to Yo's pleas and recommend that she call the cops. That idea gets snuffed out though, as Yo doesn't want anyone else to find her in such a crude state. She starts to hack up what appears to be a lung, but Koji doesn't hear the rest of that because Fuminori has snuck up on him and knocked the phone out of his hands. Pressing the advantage, Fuminori thrusts Koji into the well. The fall doesn't kill Koji, though that isn't necessarily a good thing. Koji tries to raise his voice against his attacker, but he can barely get out a groan. Mocking Koji's painful fall, Fuminori throws Koji's phone down the well, but it is lacking its battery pack. Wanting an explanation, Koji's hamster brain spins in its wheel fast enough for him to understand that Fuminori brought him out here to kill him. The fall was meant to kill Koji, but it looks like time is going to have to fulfill that job now. Not that Fuminori cares, his friend's death is set in stone. He did have an alternative method he was planning to use, as Koji picks up the phrase might as well during Fuminori's explanation for why he attacked Koji, but he saw the well and thought, yeah, that seems like a neat way to kill someone.
別段今すぐ殺す必要なんてなかったんだけどね。もしかしたら お前は僕の邪魔をするようになるやつかもしれないし、せっかく人目につかないところまで出かけるんならついでにと思ってさ。
ついでにってお前そんな理由で俺を。
お前死ぬのに理由が欲しいのか。
This reasoning doesn't satisfy Koji, but Fuminori backfires by saying that sometimes people die for no reason, and if Koji wants one, he has all the time in the world to come up with a reason. His deed finished, Fuminori leaves Koji to his fate, unaware of Yo's dilemma. We too also leave Koji to join Fuminori, who feels great after his murder that was so perfect that it possibly couldn't fail. To Fuminori, it's like he finished a 1,000-piece puzzle or pulled off a sweet combo in Yu-Gi-Oh! He's in such a good mood that he doesn't care about how long his trip back to Tokyo is going to be, as it's not like he can use Koji's car without any risk. Taking the long trek home, Fuminori recounts his plan in full detail. He correctly guessed that Ogai wouldn't be at Tochigi, meaning the cabin would be completely deserted, allowing him to commit his murder. Though in his original plan, Fuminori was going to hack up Koji with a meat cleaver, but when he saw the well, he called an audible. On a whim, just like Koji reckoned. The only person left for Fuminori to remove is Yo, but he's completely unaware that she has already been taken care of. Granted, Fuminori is also oblivious that Koji left a message for Tombo, so he actually has another person to deal with unbeknownst to him. Climbing off the mountainside, Fuminori takes the nearest train back to Tokyo and attempts to draft a plan to kill Yo, but he can't come up with one before he reaches his residence. Entering his home, Fuminori is welcomed back by Saya. Owing an apology to the girl, Fuminori begins to tell Saya why he's so late getting back from Ogai's cabin, but he gets cut off when Saya tells him that she's almost finished with preparations. That word confuses Fuminori, but all Saya does is smile and ask if he wants dinner, bath, or... you know the joke. Fuminori chooses bath first as he's been out for the entire night, with Saya joining him so she can be regaled by the tale of his night out. Also in the bath, Fuminori informs Saya that the only person he has left to deal with is Yo, but he hasn't thought of a way to kill her. Already in the know, Saya tells Fuminori to leave Yo to her, earning an incredulous response from Fuminori. Finished taking their shared bath, Saya orders Fuminori to close his eyes as she leads him towards the upstairs bedroom. He does open them when he hears the sounds of someone whimpering, but quick as a whippet, Saya reams Fuminori for disobeying her commands. After being told that it isn't anything dangerous, Fuminori closes his eyes once again, wondering who did Saya let into the house. When he's finally standing face to face to the source of the voice, Saya directs Fuminori to open his eyes, allowing him to see that it was Yo who was weeping. Lust instantly hits Fuminori as Yo has been chained inside the bedroom with nary a fabric on her, but questions follow it. Stepping up to answer them, Saya discloses that she transformed Yo into the same species that she is, also that Fuminori could love Yo. This blows Fuminori's mind, though it shouldn't, as Saya has told him before that she can morph the human body. It pays to listen, Fuminori, something he's shockingly shit at. I say this in jest, but Saya does follow this statement with something that is quite quizzical. Whatever the range of her powers, changing the body types of other living creatures is how they were meant to be used. And odder still is that Yo was Saya's first test run on a human to this degree. Fuminori still can't believe that he's seen Yo until she, through glassy eyes, looks at him. Continuing her spiel, Saya boasts that out of everyone on the planet, she knows the most about the anatomy of Homo sapiens. This is thanks in part to Fuminori's seed. They do call it that for a reason. By analyzing the DNA inside of it, Saya was able to almost completely understand the human body. Specifying almost, Saya's job on Yo didn't go perfectly, as Yo doesn't know how to operate her new body because of her broken mind. She's the equivalent of a scared animal, or as Saya puts it, a gift. Fuminori did want family and friends after all. Thinking about the logistics of keeping a person hostage, Fuminori worries about the upkeep for Yo, but Saya tells him not to, pulling at the chain to show that Yo isn't going anywhere, not like she could anyway. Conceding to Saya, Fuminori is still trying to figure out what she means by gifting Yo to him. Saya takes this as Fuminori being unhappy with her actions, but he stifles out that his concern is based around Saya being jealous of Yo living with the two. Upon hearing that, Saya clears the air by telling Fuminori to not overthink things. Fuminori still has conflicting feelings as he doesn't want to be aroused by Yo's body, but Saya gives him the go-ahead to be as long as she joins in with the fun. Though he does try to get her to reconsider, Fuminori is rebuffed by a smiling Saya, a smile permeating with ill intent and envy, telling him that they are lovers and Yo is their pet.
じゃあさ、この子を可愛がるときはさやも一緒に混ぜてよ。さやの体だけじゃできないような遊び方、みんなで楽しもうよ。ね？
いいのか？
文則とさやは恋人同士で、つくばようはそんな二人のペット。この子は私と文則に可愛がられるたびにそのことを思い出すの。これから毎日ずーっとね。
Witnessing the full brunt of Saya's dark side only makes Fuminori love her more, and even his thoughts speak on how human-like Saya has become. Accepting this gift, Fuminori, alongside Saya, molests Yo. When the two are finished with the act, the family settles in for the night, but ever as philosophical, Fuminori ruminates on everything before him, most importantly, Saya. He wants to know what she is and asks her, half expecting to not get an answer, but Saya does provide one in the form of a flowery metaphor. Saya is a dandelion. Small and weak, but if given enough love and care from at least one person, it can turn even a desert into an oasis.
タンポポって花があるよね。種を風に乗せて飛ばすやつ。綿毛の種は風に運ばれて、ふるさとから遠く遠く離れて、もしかしたら草木なんか一本も生えてない砂漠に落ちちゃうかもしれない。そんな時、たった一粒のその種が何を思うか。それを想像してくれれば分かってもらえるかもしれない。私のこと。種はもちろん草の種だからね。その気になって頑張れば砂漠を砂漠じゃなくしてしまえる。ただ 一粒だけの種でも、もしかしたら頑張ろうって思うようになるかもしれない。頑張って育って増えて、いつかこの土地が一面のタンポポ畑になるまで頑張ろうって、そう思うかもしれない。そんな風にタンポポの種が心を決めるとしたら、どんな時だと思う？
それは
それはね、その砂漠にたった一人だけでも花を愛してくれる人がいるって知ったとき、タンポポの花は綺麗だねって種に話しかけてくれたとき、あなたのこと大好き。ずっとそばにいて、いつまでも私の隣に。
ああ、もちろん。
As the Sakisakas are enjoying their new freedom, Koji is inching one step closer to becoming roommates with Sadako. Death has him within its threshold, and the only thing Koji can do is think of the memories he made during his time in the coil. Dreams and memories mix together as his mind deteriorates just like cars, but Koji is brought back from the edge by the sound of a running engine. Knowing that whoever this person is that has arrived is his only chance of rescue, Koji desperately bellows out to catch their attention, completely disregarding how raw his throat has become. This pays off as the person, Tombo, looks down the well and calls to him. Needing some equipment to get Koji out, Tombo heads back to her car as Koji tests to see how damaged his body has become. Despite some aches and numbness, Koji can still move. Returning back to the mouth of the well, Tombo throws down a rope and asks if Koji can climb it on his own. He cannot, spurring Tombo to go down the well herself. Upon seeing that Tombo is his savior, Koji is stupefied. No wonder he and Fuminori were best friends. They both have awful short-term memory. That said, Tombo is clad in survival gear and carrying an electric lamp as opposed to a flashlight, so his bewilderment isn't entirely out of place. It's like she stepped out of Call of Cthulhu or any other property connected to the cosmic horror genre. Pulling a flask out from her large coat, Tombo orders Koji to slowly sip from it. Tasting the liquid, Koji reels from how potent it is. Tombo gets a slight kick from Koji's reaction to the spirituous vodka and alcohol she always carries on her person due to its many uses. Just like with Fuminori, Koji tries to hazard a guess as to why Tombo is acting completely different from the way she does at the hospital, and he does get around to asking why she came to the cabin. Scolding him as if he was a child, Tombo sharply reminds Koji that he did call her. When she called back, Tombo didn't get an answer and assumed the worst. Painfully recalling the recent developments regarding Fuminori and Yo, Koji's rage rises just enough to the surface that Tombo can see it and upbraid him for it, as getting upset now won't solve this case. Neither will the police, but before Koji can learn why, Tombo finds a secret entrance at the bottom of the well. Tombo chides herself for not discovering it earlier, indirectly bringing to light that not only does she have a history of Ogai, but she's been to Tochigi before. Koji picks up on this and wants answers, but Tombo is too enthralled with the long corridor leading out of the well. Whatever Tombo is searching for at the dwelling, it's at the end of the passage, but she doesn't want Koji to come into contact with the world that she has to deal with. Flipping between the rope and the hall, Koji asks to be brought along, with Tombo humoring him. The two travel the length of the underground passage and share a conversation along the way. Koji mainly tries to figure out the enigma that is known as Ryoko Tombo, but she isn't having it, as Koji doesn't need to learn information that is far above his brain's comprehension. A small finding is made partway through the shaft, a stretch of rope that has a knot in it. Ogai would have used it to enter the well and tunnel without leaving any evidence behind. That's why Ryoko didn't make any advancements in her quest. Needing some form of sanity that he can latch onto, Koji doesn't get it when he asks Tombo for clarification concerning her trips to the shanty empty. Instead, he witnesses Tombo pulling out his sawn-off double barrel. She means to splatter Ogai with it, as she wasn't able to do so in the past. In conclusion, Tombo is trying to rectify the present and future because of her past mistakes.
オーガイの正体を初めて知ったとき、私はただの善良な一般市民だった。交通違反すら無縁のね。あの時にこいつがあったなら、私は多分オーガイをきっちり殺せていただろう。そうなってれば、もしかしたら君たちがこんな災難に巻き込まれることもなかったかもしれない。その点は申し訳ないと思ってるよ。だから、これから私がやることは一切合切。君とその友達が足を突っ込んでる泥沼のありさまを終わらせてやるための手続きだ。その辺をよく理解して余計な口は突っ込まないこと。いいね。
Completed with her summary and with the two reaching a door at the end of the path, Tombo wastes no time kicking it in, opening up a hidden operating theater. Swiftly destroying the door proved to be a poor choice, as the room is lined with many arcane relics and runes that stir sickness within Koji. Shouting quickly, Tombo tells him to not look at them and to stay put at the entrance of the lab. She then gets to work documenting and covering up the drawn symbols, warning Koji that if he is ever going to study the occult, it's best to follow this procedure. Choosing not to is both detrimental to one's health and could lead to a cataclysm, as only the inscriber or conjurer knows exactly what specific inscriptions and ritual items do. There's nothing like getting your lower half eaten by an accidentally summoned Atlatch-Natcha. Personally, I prefer the Mind Flayer, but that's just me. Anywho, Tombo finishes up coating the lab in black paint, allowing Koji to catch his breath. In a snap, however, it's taken out of him again when Ryoko, in a curt manner, tells him that she found Ogai. Directing him towards a side room, when Koji enters it, he comes across the shrunken husk of Ogai. A small hole located on his right temple and a revolver held in his right hand authenticate the professor's death as a suicide. Well enclosed by the bazaar, Koji doesn't even bat an eye at the mummy, but having reached its limit, Koji's body gives out on him. A moment of time later, Koji reawakens back in the cabin's bedroom. Tombo, who is also in the room and studying documents she found in the theater, carry him out of the lab via another secret entrance. The papers are what everyone has been looking for, as they are Ogai's research notes. Taking that they have something to do with Fuminori, Koji demands to know what his former best friend has to do with the corpse in the lab. Tombo, who's not even looking at Koji, coolly replies that Fuminori was searching for Ogai on the behest of a relative, and a possibility as the professor didn't have any. Continuing to study the notes, Tombo asks if the name Saya rings a bell. Though Koji answers that it doesn't, the name is seen all throughout the manuscripts and is the focus of them. If Fuminori is involved with whatever Saya is, which he is, Tombo will kill him. Thoroughly dispirited, Koji once again brings up the cops, but Tombo spoils that idea, remarking that all they will do is draw up the most logical conclusion for the happenings that our characters are entrenched in. Methinks a wellness check would solve a couple of issues here, but I don't know if those are conducted in Japan, and Tombo is partially right in her claims of how useless the police would be in this situation, thus making Koji rethink his proposition. Besides, if he called them, he and Tombo wouldn't be able to ambush Fuminori. He would just go into hiding if the cops were called, a repeat of what happened with Ogai. Needing the bigger picture, Koji implores Tombo to tell him about her past with the professor. Turning to face Koji, Tombo urges him to forget about the whole ordeal. Frustration boils over Koji's body at that notion, the two get into a spat. It ends when Koji discerns that Tombo is a tree too ingrained to knock over. Getting up from the bed, Koji wants to know how long he's been out. Half a day is the answer. So for 2 whole days, he was sitting in the well. Grabbing some of the food Tombo brought with her, Koji leaves the cabin, Tokyo, his destination. Tombo bemoans Koji for his headstrong tendencies, as she needs more time to decrypt Ogai's scribblings, but she at least arms Koji with Ogai's revolver. A chilly breeze hits Koji on his way to his car, and alongside the gun acts as a warm welcome to the world of madness that Ryoko inhabits. Partaking in the food as soon as he is inside the car, Koji breathes a sigh of relief knowing that he has 2 phones. Picking up his old one, Koji calls Fuminori. A verbal tete-a-tete ensues, Koji landing the first blow with swagger. Placed on the back foot by a dead man, Fuminori wants to know how Koji survived. This turns out to be a foolish question, however, as Koji phrases what he is saying in such a way that completely takes over the war of words. Reminding himself of Tombo's words and their boreal connotation, Koji switches the topic of the conversation to Omi and Yo, swearing that he will look the other way if Fuminori promises to stop inducing torment to those around him. Caught with red hands, Fuminori admits that he had nothing to do with Omi, but Yo is currently with him and won't want to leave. Taking his own turn to land a punishing straight, Fuminori calls Yo his property and that Koji and Omi finally got their wish granted.
彼女はね、念願かなってようやく僕の持ち物になったんだよ。お前とオウミのお膳立てもようやく実を結んだわけだな。
Stung by that, Koji closes out the battle by telling Fuminori that if he releases Yo, Koji will leave him alone. Hoping that Fuminori buys into the bluff, and with time against him, Koji races back to Tokyo. In the city, Fuminori, who's being pleasured by a now talking Yo, constructs a plan of attack to deal with Koji. Staying at the Sakisaka house would be a poor defensive option, thus Fuminori opts to leave the nest and find a new one. Saya, when told of this strategy, is reluctant to go with this idea, but knows that it's the only option the two have. Up and still sifting through the notes at the wee hours of the morning is Tombo, thanking whatever gods that Ogai didn't trust them computers for data entry. He believed in old-fashioned pen and paper as well as obscuring the structure of his work. The piles upon piles of paper containing Ogai's life's work were scrambled with a strange writing pattern, but because of her own deranged perseverance, Tombo not only figured out how it worked, but also restored a few volumes of it. In the notes, Ogai details his time with an alien who had an appetite for information. Despite this, however, the subject, which Ogai refers to as a he for the time being, didn't identify as an individual. It lacked an ego. Yet, even without a soul, the creature learned the human tongue in such a short manner that it could freely talk with Ogai. Not that he learned anything about where it came from. Ogai hypothesizes that the he only gained sentience after it materialized in our world. Another conclusion Ogai theorizes is that the creature was made by an even more intelligent race as a sort of spy drone. Whatever the case, speech wasn't the only thing the alien was good at, as it excelled at numbers too, calculating many unfound Mersenne primes. Out of all the subjects in the world, however, biology interested the creature the most, particularly reproduction. It's as if that interest was born out of instinct. Such an instinct that drives it to consume the sperm of other living animals, denoting the creature as female. That's not all, though, as she started creating a personality, indicating to Ogai that she might have birthed a soul. On the day of her birthday, Ogai christened the outsider as Saya. When given the semen of other beasts, Saya is able to mold them to how she sees fit, what Ogai proposes to be her purpose in life. This proposal instills fear into Tombo, who starts frantically searching for the notes on Saya's biology as she doesn't have much time left before Koji reaches Tokyo. I would argue that she has no time because Koji has already pulled up near the Sakisaka house and is beginning endgame. Storming the house, Koji is the third person assaulted by the vile Redolent smothering the hovel. Unlike the previous entrants who entered the hellhole, the malodor only heightens Koji's senses. Making a cursory examination of the dump, Koji learns that there's no one else in the house, but if there was, he would have used the revolver, a consolation that worries Koji. He doesn't let it get to him, however, as then he would fall to fear. Focusing on his hunt, Koji enters the living room to see the full bearing of Fuminori's psychological decline. Dolor constrains Koji's person at the sight of the pain, bedamning himself for his own powerlessness to comfort Fuminori, a half-truth to be candid. Immigrating towards the kitchen, Koji confronts the apex of the stench, the refrigerator. Mustering up all the courage he has, Koji opens it and can only stare blankly at the various organs and limbs stored inside. Any remnants of his previous life have been fully atomized. Consoling his gun, Koji knows that he's not going to kill Fuminori for revenge or justice, but to reassure himself that reason exists within the world. A two-pronged path makes itself known to Koji. Either call Fuminori or Tombo. Letting his cooler head prevail, Koji rings up Tombo to inform her what has happened at the Sakisaka residence. In turn, turn, Tombo, while thankful that Koji's mistake wasn't a fatal one, instructs Koji to stay put while she extracts more information from Ogai's work, as Saya isn't exactly something that can be put down easily. The two make their break for the moment, deciding to reconvene in Tokyo at midnight to discuss their plan. At the same time, Fuminori and Saya are making their own preparations. The group of three has moved to an abandoned mental asylum in the boonies far away from the hustle and bustle of regular people. Fuminori has also purchased an axe, which, under his corrupted vision, looks like a devil arm. Too bad Fuminori has only killed one person, meaning the bonus attack he gets with it is so minuscule he's better off using the Gaia cleaver. Still, Saya tries to get Fuminori to test out the weapon on Yo, but he refuses to do so, indicating that because Yo looks like a human, he can't bring himself to harm her. Something that Fuminori is relying on, as Koji might hesitate to kill Fuminori because he's human, while Fuminori won't because people to him look like bulbs of flesh. That's in theory, mind you, as Saya makes clear. She would much rather preempt Koji from the shadows, but Fuminori doubts her strength. It's not that Saya isn't weak, it's that her efficiency in combat is based on the element of surprise. Those who can grasp her true form are people already lost to the throes of delirium can easily step up to Saya. Her appearance could even incite the opposite effect that she would want, as some people react to fear with fury. Either way, both Fuminori and Saya's ideas are based on human reaction, which is so vacuous that it's almost impossible to plan.
Thoughts that are mad